Alrighty, folks. Welcome to the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. We are live once again. How is everybody doing today? How is everyone doing? What a day, chat. What a day. We've got some terrible news out of Washington, D.C. with a shooting of Israeli embassy staff. What a terrible, terrible, terrible thing to see. We hate when violence happens. We hate when violence happens. And remember, chat, whenever you feel down or depressed and you're just tired of seeing violence, look at each other and give each other a peepo smile. Give each other a peepo smile. It's our way to keep ourselves together through the violence that we abhor. We hate violence. We peepo smile whenever we want to help each other struggle. So if you didn't hear, there was a few embassy staff, Israel embassy staff, who were shot in Washington, D.C.
Generous support of my patron.
Also, one of the members of NECAP is
Let's turn now to former Treasury.
To Israeli.
We'll be covering that.
All right, let's take a look at the Treasury yields.
Oh boy. Okay, sorry, chat. All my videos decided to just start playing all at once. I don't know who the perpetrators are. I don't know their motivations. We may read the manifesto if I can do that without getting in trouble. My general feeling is what I posted last night, which is that violence is bad.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
So I agree with John F. Kennedy. I agree with John F. Kennedy, our president, that when there seems to be no legitimate means for justice, when the International Criminal Court is humiliated, attacked, sanctioned, treated like a criminal organization, when international human rights groups are ignored, tarred and feathered with false accusations of bigotry, when the United States of America ignores the crimes we are committing live on our phones, when the appeals to humanity fall on deaf ears, John F. Kennedy has a strong point.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Now, I am not an anarchist, and so I don't have a lot of faith that these individual acts, whether it be Luigi Mangione, who we condemn for his violence. Luigi in the chat, if you condemn. I know I do. Luigi, please. Luigi Groove in the chat, if you condemn. The alleged killer, he hasn't been convicted, so I don't want anyone to think that we know for sure that he did it. Or it's this person. Individual acts of violence like this rarely tend to cause mass social change. In fact, sometimes fascists could use them as a means of increasing repression. Now, so that's my kind of feeling on it. I would never want anyone to encourage it. I just found it inevitable. I think earlier this week, did I not say this shit's inevitable? Do you guys remember? Did I not say I was feeling it this week? Did I not say that I was like, my vibes were like, I could feel it in my bones?
Outside. No. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
My general feeling is, again, I don't think it helps the movement to do random acts of violence of low-level staffers, and that we abhor violence. How do you feel we as socialists should balance our disavowal of murder versus saying to a free Luigi? Should we just understand this is a class warfare and move on? No, here's what you have to understand. It's very important that the avenues of legal Marxism continue to exist to propagate these ideas. It's just like Zoran, right? Like Zoran is not going to go out there and say destroy the Israeli entity. Israel has no right to exist. Like, he's a politician. People don't want to hear politicians talk like that. So he's not going to do that. Like, even normal people who agree with us on everything, the moment you start saying like destroy the Zionist entity, you're going to lose people because they don't want violence. People want peace. And you sound like a violent extremist when you say shit like that. And so you're going to lose the vast majority. The vast majority of people just want to be left alone and live in peace. They want to take care of their family. So it's, you know, it's a very easy balance to make. All right, let's get into the coverage here. What concerns me the most is people using this as a pretext for clamping down on the Palestine movement. So it's very important that you don't play fast and loose. You don't make any Fed posts. You don't make any jokes that are going to allow you to be targeted. It's a time for you to understand that state repression may be around the corner and that you need to elevate your game. It's not just fun and games anymore. Remember, the NSA is watching. And of course, continue to condemn all forms of violence, right? Violence, we don't like that. We understand why it happens. We don't like it.
7/12. Man, what a horrible attack down in D.C. last night. A shooting in the nation's capital has left 2 Israeli embassy workers dead, and it certainly raised fears of escalating violence around the world.
So Doug Luzader is joining us now from Washington. And Doug, what do we know about the victims and then also the alleged gunman? We understand this is still a developing investigation, of course.
Good morning. Well, the man believed to be responsible for this attack was taken into custody, and police say he made no secret of his motive.
Free Palestine!
A suspect handcuffed and taken away, all while chanting slogans, and just moments after 2 Israeli embassy staffers were gunned down outside the Capitol Jewish Museum, blocks away from the U.S. Capitol building.
He just ran up. It was terrible.
The 2 victims who were attending an event at the museum were killed just outside. Shot, we're told, at close range before the suspected gunman was later taken into custody by security workers inside the museum.
He put his hands up, he grabbed a red keffiyeh out of his pocket and started the Free Palestine chants. You know, there's only one solution, Intifada revolution.
The police say the suspect, 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, appeared to be acting alone. But this comes as Israel has launched new attacks inside Gaza, and it follows a slew of anti-Israel protests here in the U.S. President Trump posted on Truth Social, these horrible D.C. killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now. Hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. It was a sentiment echoed by Washington's mayor.
We will not tolerate anti-Semitism.
The victims have been identified by the Israeli embassy as Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lashinsky.
It's a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem.
Now, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, meantime, says that he has stepped up security at Israeli missions around the world in response to this attack.
I just want the mods to be very free with timeouts today. There is already existing rule in this community to follow all the rules and laws of Twitch. And I don't want any federal agents to come in here and post things that can be used to accuse us of fomenting any violence and therefore deplatform pro-Palestinian creators. I think a lot of people don't understand the situation they're in.
Us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hassan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state. Extremists should not be empowered. People who spout prejudice should not be platformed. This is a moment when we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we've got to stop this because the consequences are deadly.
My reaction is, in the final stages of a genocide, this kind of stuff is going to be the cycle that they're trying to start, which is, I said this last week. Didn't I say this earlier this week? That I was surprised and shocked that the violence hadn't spread. Did you see that? Did you see that I was saying this earlier this week, that I could feel it in my gut? I don't know if anybody clipped it.
Do not let yourself.
But I knew this. Like, first of all, Hassan Piker isn't a gamer. When's the last time we had gaming content? I've been waiting for gaming content. This is how you know Jonathan Greenblatt is a liar. Like, I've been waiting for gaming content forever. He hasn't played Blueprints. He hasn't fucking, like, there's a new Helldivers patch. That's not happened. Has he even played like Marvel Rivals in months? There's a new DLC for Kingdom Come Deliverance. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Gamer, Jonathan Greenblatt, you are a liar. There's Expedition 33. Like, where's the gaming? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? So, like, when someone is willing to blatantly lie on CNN and call Hassan a gamer, I don't think you can take anything they say seriously. Shadow of the Erd Tree, exactly. Where's his? What the fuck is this shit? Chat, I've been sure. I'm about to 100% Blueprints. So I'm like, I could probably do that today if I wanted. I could probably finish it up. I haven't experimented with the things that I still have to do in my own runs is just like all the challenge wins, which was not hard. That's not hard at all. You could do that in a day. And I haven't experimented with putting all sorts of rooms in the outdoor room. I've experimented, I've like finished the, I've unsealed blue doors. I've unsealed the like first blue door that you encounter. I'm sure there's more shit to do. I've upgraded my throne room. Let's just put it that way. So I don't know and I haven't really been looking at other people or watching anyone else play. So I don't know how far that is, but I feel like that's pretty damn far. It feels pretty damn far. I had to translate a motherfucking foreign language that they made up in the game. I think I'm pretty far. Did you ace your exam? What is this, baby shit? Like, of course. All right, let's keep going. You're almost out of the tutorial. I'm almost out of the tutorial. Got me. All right, let's keep going.
Israeli embassy staff have been killed in a shooting in the U.S. Capitol. The incident took place outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. The museum was hosting an annual event meant to be a reception for young Jewish...
That reminds me, today, chat, I'm going on Noah Samson's stream. So after this stream, I'm immediately going to go on to Noah Samson's stream. So that's my plan. Twitch or YouTube? No, I'm gonna end my stream and try to get you guys to go over there. I don't know who Noah is. You don't know who Noah Samson is? That's amazing. Well, welcome in, new chatter.
Professionals. The two victims were leaving the event.
Hassan waiting room to Noah waiting room. That's right. Yes. The bigger stream waits to join the smaller stream.
When they were killed, police have arrested a suspect identified as Elias Rodriguez, a 30-year-old from Chicago. Authorities say he was observed pacing outside the museum before the shooting started.
I think everybody needs to. Can I be very frank with all of you people? And I want you to understand, this is not a time to joke. This is not a time to joke. And the reason why I want you to understand that is whenever there is an act of violence, an illicit act of violence, there's an attempt to pin it on people that people politically want to control. And so they could use the state and they could use corporate power to contain people who had absolutely nothing to do with it. So I think I want to put you in the right mindset. I want you to imagine that you're in Nazi Germany and you're hiding a Jewish person and you're a member of the resistance. Would you go and like in the middle of the town square start yelling anti-Nazi shit? Would you say that hiding Jewish people is morally right and justified in the middle of the town square next to the cops, next to the SS? No, you would shut the fuck up and you would keep your head down and you would focus on your work and you wouldn't want to be associated with any random act. America is basically Nazi Germany. You have not caught up yet. It's only a matter of time before, let's be honest about what's happening. I'm going to be completely honest about what's happening. Israel is doing a genocide. They intend on killing every man, woman, and child in Gaza. No state is going to allow them to expel the population. So they're going to kill them all. And they're going to blame the world for it by saying nobody wanted them, which is exactly word for word what Hitler said. And because they're planning and they are engaging in genocide, all of their allies know what they're doing. Nobody is confused. I want you to disabuse yourself. Nobody is confused about what Israel is trying to do. No one doesn't know. Everyone knows. No one is confused. No one is tricked. Every single person in the world who's connected to the internet knows that Israel is doing a genocide. No one is confused. Xi Jinping isn't confused. Donald Trump isn't confused. No one is confused. The vast majority of people do not want it to happen. They disagree with it. They think it's wrong. But the grand and the big problem with humanity is we stand aside as bystanders. I don't know how not to be a bystander at this point. I've done everything I know how to do to try to argue against this, to promote this side, to promote the side of peace, to support international law, to support protests, to support political candidates. I've done everything I fucking can within the law to stop this. But it is what is happening. A genocide of the Palestinians. And this isn't Donald Trump. And this isn't Republicans only. This is Democrats and Republicans. This is Chuck Schumer. This is Donald Trump. This is America's politics is doing this genocide. I want you to understand that. That is what is happening. And those of us who stand against it are standing against the will of the American state. We are standing against the will of America's military. You are standing against the will of America's intelligence services. You are standing against America. You may not think it, but every police officer, every law enforcement agent, every immigration official, every spy, every agent of the United States is your enemy. That's just the way it is. It may sound shocking to you. It may sound extreme, but that is how they see it. If you are a member of the pro-Palestinian movement, the American state is looking for ways to kill you, to imprison you, to ruin your life. I hope this is a wake-up call for you. I'm not saying hide. I'm not saying be apathetic. I'm saying be smart and know what the stakes are. And you're going to see why so many people were cowardly. There's a reason why Brian Tyler Cohen doesn't say anything about Gaza. There's a reason why David Pakman doesn't say anything about Gaza. There's a reason why so many of your favorite celebrities and musicians and artists, people you thought were politically engaged, people you thought were on the right side of history, are fucking silent because they know this. I think there's a lot of people who spoke out who didn't know this. Maybe they were naive. I spoke out knowing all of this. This is not to be dramatic. This is not to be, self-aggrandizing. This is just the way it is. America is not a democracy. America doesn't have free speech. America has always targeted people like me.
Do not let yourself be fooled. This shooting of diplomats who worked for the Israeli government is not an example of anti-Semitism. The man was literally Christian. Here he is himself admitting it, and here is someone who knew him saying that the guy was 100% a Christian and not Jewish. So don't let yourself be quickly fooled by the Israeli narrative that this is an example of terrifying anti-Semitism on the streets. And I don't think I'll share it in this video, but here's Ken Klippenstein.
By the way, chat, if you're going to come into my chat for your first post and post extremist shit, like, here's the thing. I know, you know what I believe. You know what I sympathize with. Be smart. Don't be stupid. We cannot and we will not support illegal activity anywhere near this stream. I may have to actually turn on follower mode. Hold on. That's a good point, chatter. We may have to turn on a longer follower mode. Or I may have to turn on like an older account mode at least. Because like we can't have new accounts saying shit. I may have to turn on email verification. Okay. We'll see how that goes. The reason why I say that is it's very important that everybody understands. No, it's not TOS. It's Twitch. It's like community guidelines. Yeah. It's very, very interesting. Like, you can't do violence. You can't advocate for Twitch does not allow content that depicts, glorifies, or encourages or supports terrorism or violent extremic acts or actors. This includes threatening to or encouraging others to commit acts that will result in serious physical harm to or significant property destruction. We require users to respect all applicable local, national, and international laws while using our services. So, for example, if you're in North Korea and you criticize the Kim Il-sung, that would be bannable on Twitch. All right? Like, do you understand? So don't break those laws. Pretty simple. I want to say that I consider this to be, you are duly warned, and expect me to start banning people.
Well, this is where the shooting happened. Emergency crews are near the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C., just a few blocks north of the U.S. Capitol building. Washington, D.C.'s police chief has detailed the arrest of the suspect after having shot and killed 2 people.
We believe the shooting was committed by a single suspect who is now in custody. Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once in handcuffs, the suspect identified where he discarded the weapon, and that weapon has been recovered, and he implied that he committed the offense. The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody. The suspect has been tentatively identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, Illinois.
Israel's ambassador to the US also spoke at that press conference about the 2 people killed outside the Jewish Museum.
It's a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. They were a beautiful couple who came to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center. I will say this: we are a resilient people. The people of Israel are resilient people, and the people of the United States of America are resilient people. Together we won't be afraid, together we'll stand, and we're going to overcome moral depravity.
Well, US President Donald Trump has just posted to social media saying these horrible DC killings, based obviously on anti-Semitism, must end now. He went on to say hatred and radicalism have no place in the USA. Condolences to the families of the victims. So sad that such things as this can happen. God bless you all. And US Secretary of State Marco Rubio has commented on the attack, saying, "We condemn in the strongest possible terms the murder of 2 staff members from the Embassy of Israel in Washington, D.C. Our prayers are with their loved ones. This was a brazen act of cowardly anti-Semitic violence." He went on to say, "Make no mistake, we will track down those responsible and bring them to justice." Well, Heidi Jo Castro has more on this story from Washington, D.C.
D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser said that though this is likely to just be one suspect who has now been detained, she acknowledged that this will likely frighten a lot of people. The Israeli ambassador, who was also present at this news conference, also said that President Donald Trump was...
Seems very interesting to me that the shooter made no attempt to hide their identity or escape. That seems really interesting.
Almost immediately on the phone with him, saying that the U.S. administration will do everything it can to, quote, fight anti-Semitism and the demonization of the state of Israel. The ambassador went on to describe the 2 victims who were killed as a young couple who, in fact, were about to become engaged.
Why target 2 rando staffers? I mean, I can only speculate on the killer's motives, but I don't think this is what I would consider a coordinated, planned attack. It seems like a spontaneous attack of opportunity. You know, made by a single lone wolf who did it from a position of emotional upset or emotional instability. You know, like, this is not what a targeted group attack looks like. It's not just one guy wandering up, shooting people You know, like that is an attack that comes out of anger. That is an attack that is typical of a single individual or even a false flag. There is here's the thing about the manifesto, chat. I don't think I can read it until it is posted on mainstream news sources. And I love Ken and I consider him a journalist, but I feel like it's a little bit dangerous for me to read it until it's on like somewhere like CNN or another you know, legitimate mainstream news source. Even though I consider Ken to be that, I'm trying to protect, as I said before on this platform many times, we have to protect the places where pro-Palestinian advocacy goes forward, and we cannot align ourselves with illicit activity because it'll be used as a pretext to deplatform. I can't, I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to read the manifesto, or maybe I am and I'm just being paranoid. I could message someone on Twitch and see what they think before I do it. Yeah, just because you do doesn't mean Twitch. I mean, there are no rules. I want you to understand this about Twitch. I know I showed you guys a bunch of rules. Those rules have examples. Those examples are not inclusive, okay? They are just examples of things that if you do them, you will definitely get banned. All right? They are not all inclusive, okay? You know what the rules are of Twitch? Twitch bans you if they decide they want to ban you. That is the rules of Twitch. So I'm going to try to keep myself well on the side of not getting banned right now, because I think that would be foolish and that wouldn't be worth it.
Next week, when they were going to visit Jerusalem or going to Jerusalem, again described as a young couple, both members of the Israeli embassy staff. The authorities say that this, again, was a single suspect who is now in police custody. They named him as Elias Rodriguez of the city of Chicago, so not from the D.C. area, 30-year-old man. They say that prior to the shooting, he was seen pacing outside of the Capitol Jewish Museum. And then when a group of 4 people, including those 2 victims, emerged from the museum, that is when those 2 were shot. Police arrived. The 2 were unconscious and were not able to be revived and have been pronounced dead. As far as that shooter, again, he has been detained. Police say that after he shot those 2 victims, then you
should consider all posts you make on the internet to be said directly to the most pro-Israeli Zionist extremist in the government. All right, this is the mental framework I want you to have. Imagine you are talking to the most pro-Zionist FBI agent in the entire country, or the most pro-Zionist prosecutor in the entire country, or the most pro-Zionist politician in the country. Imagine you're talking directly to Marco Rubio. Now, you may hear that and go, yeah, I really tell them what I want to think. In this moment, they may be trying to set this up as a Reichstag fire. I don't think it's significant enough to do that, but they may try. And I think a lot of people just don't want to believe that this is true. But the reality is they're trying to silence pro-Palestinian voices.
Went inside the museum, but there he was apprehended by security staff within the building. And then when he was already handcuffed, he apparently showed the security guards where the murder weapon, the handgun, was, and he implied, according to the mayor, that he had committed the shooting. And then he also said that he, while in custody, said the words "Free, Free Palestine," and we heard that echoed in what the other members of the giving this press conference said, including Kristi Noem, the U.S. Homeland Security Secretary, and Israel's ambassador, both there. Not saying that they're assigning a motive at this point to the shooting, but certainly putting the dots there for others to connect, and also speaking of their concerns of growing anti-Semitism in the U.S.
We're going to bring in Richard Weiss. He's a security expert and analyst. He joins us from Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us once again, Richard. From what we know of what unfolded, I mean, how do you assess exactly what happened?
It seems this was a well-planned assassination attempt.
I don't know if I would call it well-planned. It's more just like the guy had a handgun, incredibly easy to get in the U.S. He went to an event where Israeli embassy officials were attending. He hyped himself up and then proceeded to shoot the first 2 embassy people he saw, and then turned himself in. I wouldn't call this well-planned. I would not call that well. I would call that opportunistic, emotional, lone wolf violence. That's not well-planned. That is like something you do in a fit of pique. Well-planned would be like buying a bunch of equipment, scouting out the location, having an escape route, concealing your identity, targeting a high-ranking official, having coordinated with a bunch of people. That would be well-planned. Like at least a plan of escape attempted. That would be well-planned. Firing from concealment, firing from cover, you know, like using any amount of protective equipment. There was no plan here. It was just grabbed a gun from the fucking gun store, walked up to a random group of Israeli, you know, embassy workers and opened fire, and then immediately started chanting and turned yourself in. I don't call that well planned. I call that an individual doing something out of an act, you know, an emotional. I call that a spontaneous act of emotionally motivated violence. That's not well planned.
Gunman staked out the target and waited for an opportune time to attack as many Israeli diplomats as he could.
It doesn't sound like what happened to me at all. It doesn't sound like what happened at all.
As though to have acted alone. He appears to have used a simple handgun, not a more sophisticated weapon. So I'm sure the people will be asking about flaws in security. They'll certainly look for foreign connections and
Step 1, stand around all sweaty outside the place going, oh man, I don't know if I should do this. Step 2, say your motive in the back of a police car after telling them you did it. So well planned. Yeah, what the fuck? It's just a random guy.
People who might have helped them, but at the present we don't see him.
No, exactly. I mean, this was a high-profile event, obviously well-publicised. He was seen pacing outside during the event, looking suspicious, as some reports have suggested. I mean, you mentioned a security failure. Do you think that there has been one here?
Not clear. The security guard there did prevent more shootings. They apprehended the suspect after the initial shootings. But they may look at gaps in jurisdiction. So the security guards would be responsible for the facility security. The DC police would be responsible for the area outside the building and so on. So it's possible this person fell through the cracks, but it's just very hard to stop a lone gunmen from attacking people. It's you know, there's probably not much advance warning, if any, that they can find.
Your police were at pains to point out that he was not known to police before this shooting. Can you just give us a bit more of a general look at what sort of security protection is there for the average embassy staffer? I mean, is there any? We've heard that these weren't exactly high-profile Israeli embassy staffers.
Right. Certainly for, you know, the most senior ones, ambassador, defense attaché, and so on, that those people would be well protected, probably have dedicated security people. For lower-level staffers who are just going about town, it's unlikely that they would have special security in most cases, but since it is the Israeli embassy, they may have had stricter internal protocols requiring, you know, advance notice of where you'll be, and perhaps have some security provided by the embassy in the vicinity or at the event.
Okay, thank you so much, Richard. We'll have to leave it there, but we appreciate your insight. Richard Weiss for us in Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.
Yeah. I do think they're going to attempt to use this as a pretext to silence as many pro-Palestinian voices as they can. How are the libs covering it?
I'm Chief Pamela A. Smith, Chief of Police for the Metropolitan Police Department, and I'll start by expressing my sincere condolences to both of the victims and the families, and also the attendees tonight at the Capitol Jewish Museum. At approximately 9:08 p.m. tonight, we received multiple calls for a shooting in the area of 3rd Street and F Street Northwest. Officers located one adult male and one adult female unconscious and not breathing at the scene. DC Fire and EMS responded, and despite all life-saving efforts, both victims succumbed to their injuries. The preliminary investigation indicates that both victims were exiting an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum located in the 500 block of 3rd Street Northwest when the shooting occurred. We believe the shooting was committed by a single suspect who is now in custody. Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once in handcuffs, the suspect identified where he discarded the weapon, and that weapon has been recovered, and he implied that he committed the offense. The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody. The suspect has been tentatively identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, Illinois. Our MPD case detectives are leading this investigation. I will now turn it over to Washington Field Office Associate Director Steve Jensen.
Thank you, Chief. I'm Steve Jensen, the Assistant Director in charge of the Washington Field Office. I'd also like to express my sincere condolences not only to the family of the victims, but to the ambassador and the grievance for the Israeli nation. Tonight, a heinous crime was committed, and the FBI stands with the Metropolitan Police Department to help not only investigate the homicide and provide support, but also to look into ties to potential terrorism or motivation based on a bias-based crime or a hate crime. That's our reason for being here.
Now, from what I understand, at least one of the victims was Christian Zionist, was not Jewish. So I think it's pretty hard to say that it's a hate crime against Jewish people if the guy wasn't Jewish. And I think there is a kind of fascinating game that's being played where it's anti-Semitic to attack or criticize Israel at all, including all the non-Jewish people working in the U.S. who are just supporters of Israel. That seems pretty anti-Semitic to me.
Full support of the FBI to Metropolitan Police Department to resolve this. And I also want to express my sincere gratitude to Metropolitan Police Department for their quick action, their attempts to render aid.
According to Z Squirrel, Jan Leszczynski was not even Jewish. He was a crazed Christian Zionist freak who volunteered to serve in the IDF and did propaganda for them in the embassy. It makes calling this an anti-Semitic attack doubly deranged and actually the height of the anti-Semitism by conflating Israel and non-Jewish Israelis with all Jews. A Christian who served in the IDF and dedicated his life to Israel and Zionism. That reminds me of the apartheid white South African Christians who immigrated to Israel just to convert to Judaism so they could do more apartheid. It's like there's some people who just love doing racism.
Despite the nature of the crime resulting in the death of the victims, getting the subject in custody quickly resolved this issue and allows us to continue with the investigation. And with that, I'll turn it over to the ambassador.
Thank you. Really what I have to say this evening is thank you, Mayor, to your amazing staff, Attorney General Ms. Bondi, Chief Attorney for Washington, Judge Jeanine Pirro.
I do think it's very interesting to watch the various Democratic politicians working overtime to make sure that the Israeli government has the maximum control over the narrative. That's something to take note of. And I've been predicting this for a long time. In fact, here's what I tweeted. me see if I can find it. I said something to the effect of like, Dems will work. Dems, fuck. What was the phrase? It was like left. Oh man, fuck. Like I had such a prescient post about this exact topic right after the election. I knew exactly what was going to happen. Let me see if I can find it while this plays.
The couple that was gunned down tonight in the name of Free Palestine is a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. They were a beautiful couple who came to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center. I will say this, we are a resilient people. The people of Israel are resilient people, and the people of the United States of America are resilient people.
Okay, we saw this already. I don't need to see this shit again. Let's look at how Fox News is interpreting it.
We begin this morning with a Fox News alert. 2 Israeli diplomats killed in Washington, D.C. after a shooter opens fire outside the Capitol Jewish Museum. A suspect is in custody as we learn about the possible motive behind this horrific act.
Oh, God. No. Free Palestine! Free Palestine! Free Palestine!
The shooting happening less than a mile from Washington's FBI building and less than 10 minutes from the White House. But officials say there is no active threat to the Capitol and a multi-agency investigation is underway. You're watching Fox and Friends First here on a Thursday morning. I am Todd Pyro.
And I'm Carly Shimkus. Also this hour, we are watching House lawmakers get one step closer to passing the president's agenda. We will have reports from the Capitol throughout the hour. But first to that horrific tragedy in Washington, D.C. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Washington with the very latest. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good morning, Carly and Todd. A young Israeli couple who worked at the Israeli embassy here in Washington was shot and killed near the Capitol Jewish Museum, not far from the U.S. Capitol, by a gunman, as you just heard, who yelled, "Free, free Palestine," after the shooting. It took place last night around 9 p.m. Condolences have been pouring in from the Israeli government as well as the Trump administration. The Israeli ambassador to the United States says the male victim had recently purchased a ring with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. The ambassador said they were just wanted to enjoy an evening in Washington's Cultural Center. Now, here are the victims, Yaron Lachinsky and Sarah Milgram. The Israeli embassy posting this tribute saying they were our friends and colleagues. They were in the prime of their lives. This evening, a terrorist shot and killed them. Here's D.C.'s police chief earlier.
He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once in handcuffs, the suspect identified where he discarded the weapon, and that weapon has been recovered, and he implied that he committed the offense. The suspect chanted, "Free, free Palestine," while in custody.
And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu posting, "My heart aches for the families of the beloved young man and young woman whose lives were abruptly cut short by a despicable anti-Semitic murderer. I've instructed to strengthen security arrangements at Israel's missions worldwide and the protection of the state's representatives." Here's Israel's ambassador to the United States on the shooting.
The couple that was gunned down tonight in the name of Free Palestine is a young couple about to be engaged. The young man purchased a ring this week with the intention of proposing to his girlfriend next week in Jerusalem. Together we won't be afraid. Together we'll stand, and we're going to overcome moral depravity of people who think that they're going to achieve political gain.
Obviously, on anti-Semitism must end now. And that police officer assigned to the external post on the WFO property immediately responded and rendered aid after the attack. Early indicators are that this is an act of targeted violence. And a colleague of the victims, a spokeswoman at the Israeli embassy, posted a short time ago saying yesterday morning she was laughing with Yaron and Shara. Instead of walking them down the aisle, they're walking with them to their graves, guys. Wow.
Just horrible. Lucas Tomlinson,
What a post.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lucas.
All right, let's bring in former FBI agent Rob D'Amico. And Rob, throughout the course of this hour, we're going to be looking at this horrific killing from a number of perspectives. With you, obviously, we want to focus from the law enforcement perspective. Was it simply a matter of time that the violent anti-Semitic rhetoric that we have seen festering in this country over the last 2 years escalated to murder?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with everything going back and some of the recent postings with the media on some of the things that were going on in Gaza, it's just accumulated to the point where someone felt they had to take something into their own hands, like that, like happened last night.
Yeah, well, as we try and piece all of this together, Rob, here's one eyewitness account of what he saw.
When the cops actually came in, he said, "I did this." He said, "Sir, I'm unarmed." He put his hands up. He grabbed a red keffiyeh out of his pocket and started the Free Palestine chants. You know, there's only one solution, Intifada revolution. And he was being dragged out of the building as he was yelling Free Palestine, and he kept yelling Free Palestine.
Does it sound to you like this suspect wanted to kill anybody coming out of the Capitol Jewish Museum, or do you think he went there targeting these two individuals specifically?
I don't think it was a target of these two specifically. I think he knew an event was being held there, and that anyone would come out would be either Jewish or associated with Israel. So he just walked up to the first ones he saw. He was out there, pacing, knowing that someone was going to be coming out soon, and then just took it upon him that these two happened to be, unfortunately, the targets. I think anyone who came out in his path to begin with was going to be shot.
Rob, the museum where these killings took place recently reported security concerns. But in reality, could anything have been done to prevent what I'm going to call a rogue actor from committing a killing like this?
It's really tough. I've actually done security for a network that protects Jewish enclaves and buildings and meetings and such. And you really have to pay attention. If someone had seen him out there pacing, maybe if someone had talked to him and said, "What are you doing here?" that would have spooked him. That would have given the security alert. But even when I do a close executive protection, having someone just walk up and then pull the gun out, and it's random, it's not targeted, you don't have intelligence, is so hard to prevent, especially if they don't care. I don't think he probably cared what happened to him. So if he's not worried about...
So here's the post I made, which is, it really is expected that major liberal voices are eager to ally with the fascist right in order to target the left. They know their politics is defunct and discredited. And then instead of gracefully passing the torch, they are committing murder-suicide to protect their flaccid ego. This is what is happening. They're going to be like, "Oh my God, look at the anti-Semitism of this guy attacking a Christian Israeli Defense Force guy who supported the mass starvation of children. Look how anti-Semitic this is. We've got to suppress this movement." Because, and this is very straightforward and easy to understand, the centrist Democrats know that the Free Palestine movement is a good proxy for people that are actually left-wing. And they're right. They're correct. If you're not part of the Free Palestine movement, then you're not left-wing. Now, it doesn't mean everybody in the Free Palestine movement is left-wing, but if you aren't in the Free Palestine movement, then you aren't left-wing. And we know this. So it's a great way to target the left only. And you know, the people that are in Free Palestine who aren't of the left are few and far between. So it is a great proxy for it. So the centrists, who are all genocidal Zionists themselves, are going to try to ally with Donald Trump and use this as a pretext.
Law enforcement, obviously he gave himself up, but I think to make a statement that he's willing to just do this out in the open is so tough to protect against. But you still have to try. You still have to have the security being proactive.
I mean, they're very correct. Like, this is kind of this is what I've been worried about for quite a long time. In fact, I even said this week that I could feel it in my gut that we're going to start seeing more violence in Western countries against pro genocide figures. I called it, and I said it's going to happen because you can't do a genocide and then just get out of it clean. In fact, do you guys know why the League of Nations was disbanded? There was an attack on the League of Nations, on a Nazi ambassador at the League of Nations. This may not be this might not be the right one. I'm pretty sure there was. Maybe I'm inventing this, but oh, this isn't the one. I have to like find this shit. But basically, there is always pretextual shit. Nazi officials got attacked all the time.
Matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one.
Yeah, and Congressman, there is a ceasefire deal on the table right now that the White House is hoping both Israel and Hamas will sign on to. Does this shooting change anything when it comes to the course of the war or the negotiations to end it?
Well, I think it speaks to the importance of the only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice in order to get unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
We heard in Brooks.
The fact of the matter is,
first of all, we did negotiate with Japan, even after we nuked them. He's just stupid. But I mean, this doesn't surprise me. These are exactly what we've been fighting against. Yeah, they're genocidal maniacs.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable. Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
Like, that's kind of the problem that we're seeing is because international law has been discredited and attacked, because the United States of America is immune to protest and to rational argument and evidence, a people isn't going to just stand by and be exterminated without this kind of shit happening. I only think that, and the more they try to repress it, the more violent it's going to get. That's the thing that really, 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 really bothers me.
Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give.
2 staffers at the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. were shot dead last night outside the Capital Jewish Museum.
Oh, okay. This might be the thing I was thinking of. Thank you. Yes. Ernest von Rath was a member of the German nobility, a Nazi Party member, and the German Foreign Office diplomat. He is mainly remembered for his assassination in Paris by a Polish Jewish teenager. Herschel Ginzerpan provided a pretext for Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. Historians consider Kristallnacht the beginning of the Holocaust. Yeah, I think this is actually what I was thinking of. Thank you. He was upset over the news of his family's deportation from Germany back to Poland. Who was immediately arrested and confessed, insisted his motives were to avenge the Jewish people for the actions already taken by the Germans. With God's help, my dear parents, I could not do otherwise. May God forgive me. The heart bleeds when I hear of your tragedy and that of the 12,000 Jews. I must protest that the whole world hears my protest, and that I will do. Forgive me. Germany used the incident to publicize that the Jews had, quote, fired the first shot in a war on Germany. I mean, it's shocking how similar these situations are.
This is D.C. Police Chief Pamela Smith.
We believe the shooting was committed by a single suspect who is now in custody. Prior to the shooting, the suspect was observed pacing back and forth outside of the museum. He approached a group of 4 people, produced a handgun, and opened fire, striking both of our decedents. After the shooting, the suspect then entered the museum and was detained by event security. Once in handcuffs, the suspect identified where he discarded the weapon, and that weapon has been recovered, and he implied that he committed the offense.
Israel's foreign ministry identified the shooting victims as 30-year-old Yaron Lashinsky and Sarah Lynn Milgram. They both worked at the Israeli embassy and were about to be engaged. They'd been attending a private event at the Capital Jewish Museum. According to one of the organizers, the event focused on advancing humanitarian aid efforts for Gaza. Authorities arrested 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, who was filmed shouting in support of Palestinians as he was being detained.
The journalist Ken Klippenstein posted what is believed to be a manifesto by the alleged gunman, Elias Rodriguez. In the document, he praises Aaron Bushnell, the U.S. Air Force person who self-immolated last year in an act of protest outside the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C. Rodriguez wrote, quote, Aaron Bushnell and others sacrificed themselves in the hopes of stopping the massacre, and the state works to make us feel their sacrifice was made in vain, that there is no hope in escalating for Gaza and no point in bringing the war home. We can't let them succeed. Their sacrifices were not made in vain.
We go now to Tel Aviv, where we're joined by the Israeli journalist Gideon Levy, an award-winning Israeli journalist, author, columnist for the newspaper Haaretz, member of its editorial board. Gideon Levy's latest book is titled The Killing of Gaza, Reports on a Catastrophe. Thank you so much for being with us, Gideon. If you could first respond to the killing of these two staffers, a couple who walked outside of this American Jewish Committee event at the Jewish Museum in Washington last night.
I mean, this incident can be only condemned. Nothing that Israel is doing can justify such a murder. It was a murder. And
here's my take. Here's what I would say. Before you post, I want you to understand what I said earlier. This is a moment where there is a deep desire to associate criminal violence with the Free Palestine movement. I think this rhetoric that he's putting out here, that nothing Israel is doing could justify murdering diplomats, I agree with that on principle. I don't think diplomats are legitimate targets. Israel disagrees. Israel bombs embassies all the time. So I think that it is pretty unusual to set them up as some sort of like immune from the world that they've created. I think that's the situation. That being said, I abhor all illegal activity. And so do you. Because if it's against the law, it's against the law. Right?
unfortunately, also, this kind of violence will not bring the Gaza war to its end. So it's tasteless, it's criminal, it's tragic. 2 young people being murdered. It doesn't serve anything, and it should be condemned and not justified by anything. Nothing can justify it.
And Gideon, if you could just talk about what the preliminary response in Israel has been and whether you anticipate anything happening as a direct consequence of this murder.
No, I don't expect anything in particular connected with this murder, but the general atmosphere in Israel starts to be realizing that because of the war in Gaza, Israel is turning into a pariah state. People start to digest it, start to understand that there will be a price for all the crimes, for the mass killing, for the destruction. And the longer this war will go on, the more damage will be made also to Israel. First, the main damage is obviously to the real direct victims in Gaza. But also Israel is going to pay a price for running this war for so long with so little justification, legitimacy, or purpose.
Well, Gideon, if you could talk about your latest column, Israel's military leaders are not only obeying orders, they could have stopped the Gaza massacre. If you could elaborate on what you say in the piece.
There is a tendency, mainly among my friends in the Zionist left or in the central left of Israel, to put everything on the shoulders of the government, which is right to do, but to give some immunity to the army, as if the army is still the old holy cow of Israel. I cannot accept it, because finally the children, almost 1,000 babies, can you imagine yourself, almost 1,000 babies in 19 months, not to speak about the 17,000 children. They were killed by soldiers. They were killed by pilots. They were killed by people who have to take accountability for this. Yes, the government decides about the policy, and the government should be blamed for such a policy. But by the end of the day, we cannot say it's only the government, because the army did it. There are almost no refuseniks in this war, which is quite surprising. There are some, but very few, and for sure not public ones. And all the others are committing a criminal policy, a policy with a black flag on it, a policy which is very clear does not meet any of the articles of the international law. And therefore, to say we don't attack the army, we don't criticize the army, it's only the government, is really doing our life too easy. Yes, the army is very popular in Israel. We have to break this militarism once and for all and say, yes, the government is to be blamed, but so does the army. Everyone who took part in this bloodbath should be taken accountable.
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.
How do I prevent people from becoming anti-Semitic following the heinous actions in Gaza and the response from people at orgs claiming to represent Jews saying what's happening is justifiable and celebrating the clampdown on civil liberties? I've seen people becoming anti-Semitic because of community leaders and mainstream orgs that are justifying the unjustifiable. I've seen people horrified by the war crimes in Gaza being radicalized into believing genuinely heinous positions. I would say that that is horrible, but it's also predictable. This is why a materialist analysis works and other forms of idealism and moralism don't. When you have a bunch of people claiming to represent a group doing horrible crimes, people are going to hate that group. I think Finkelstein talks about this quite a lot with his parents hated Germans and they were bigoted against Germans and they wanted revenge against Germans. When the Nazi government controlled Nazi Germany and oppressed the Jews, it is natural for the oppressors, the victims of those oppressors, from becoming anti-German and maybe even bigoted against Germans, even Germans who had nothing to do with it. Because to them, the symbols of Germany are symbols of oppression. And I think that's fucking terrible. That's why hate breeds more hate. And this is so well timed for Israel as well. This is what I was worried about, because there was a growing pushback against Israel in international law and in the news. It is absolutely perfect timing for Israel. And they attacked low-level staffers. You know what I mean? It's like perfect timing for Israel and attacks people that are expendable. They're Christians. The Christian Zionists get killed. Completely expendable for the Israeli state. It is like, it's perfect. It's almost like it's designed. It's almost like it's crazy. Noah Colwyn says, you'd never know that the American Jewish Committee has been an enthusiastic supporter of genocide based on today's responses and accomplice to mass murder. This is what conflation of anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism has wrought. Media and political elites unable to evaluate how they might have brought the genocide home, just circling the wagons, a symphony of self-pity with no real answer why this happened. I mean, I've been worried about this. I mean, I even said this week, I could feel it. I could feel it was going to happen. Man, don't disavow armed resistance against Israel. Are you actually mentally effing stupid?
Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We turn now to a new report in the New York Times that takes a deep dive into Project Esther, a policy blueprint from the far-right Heritage Foundation, best known for creating Project 2025. Project Esther was launched October 7, 2024, and lays out plans for surveilling, silencing, and punishing pro-Palestinian activists, including deporting non-U.S. citizens. New York Times investigative reporter Katie J.M. Baker spoke to the people behind Project Esther for her new piece. The group behind Project 2025 has a plan to crush the pro-Palestinian movement. Katie joins us now to explain. Welcome to Democracy Now! It's great to have you with us. What did you find?
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, so I found that the architects behind Project Esther said that it's no coincidence that what we're seeing in terms of actions taken against universities and pro-Palestinian protesters on a federal, state, and local level is happening months after they released their report.
So the Forward had originally talked about this kind of white paper of the Heritage Foundation, but you went much further. You named names and talked to people behind Project Esther. Tell us who they are.
Yeah, so the woman overseeing Project Esther is Victoria Coates, She is a former national security advisor to Trump during his first administration, and she has a long history of working on Israeli matters. And then Robert Greenway ran the Abraham Accords, and he's one of the co-authors of Project Esther.
And if you can talk about what exactly their plans are, and how many Jewish groups are involved in shaping Project Esther, as they talk about, as the leaders of Project Esther talk about combating anti-Semitism?
Yeah, so Project Esther aims to rebrand all critics of Israel and pro-Palestinian protesters as providing material support for terrorism. So that means that anyone who's ever participated in a pro-Palestinian protest at a university, for example, is potentially providing material support and should be fired or deported or otherwise ostracized from what they call open society. And there's not very many Jewish groups involved in this project. There are a few, but the task force that inspired Project Esther was primarily Christian and right-wing organizations.
Can you talk about the role of Christian Zionists?
Yeah, there are some Christian Zionists who are interested in Israel because they think that it will help bring about Christian dominion worldwide or bring about biblical end times. But there are also a lot of Christians who just see shared Judeo-Christian values and support Israel for that reason. And I think most interestingly, Heritage incorporated a lot of arguments about anti-Semitism into their attacks on higher education more generally after October 7th, and they blame DEI, Black Lives Matter, those types of progressive movements for what they see as the rise of anti-Semitism on college campuses.
I wanted to turn to someone you quote in the piece. Democracy Now! Spoke Sunday with Stephanie Fox, the executive director of Jewish Voice for Peace, to ask for her response to what you exposed about Project Esther.
Project Esther was created by the ultra-conservative white Christian nationalists and should be understood as an addendum to Project 2025, which is the Heritage Foundation's plan to remake the U.S. in an ultra-conservative image. It has absolutely nothing to do with Jewish safety, and it is intended solely to destroy the Palestinian liberation movement, using tools that can then be used against all communities and movements and democracy itself. We can see clearly that Project Esther sets out a path for the Trump administration to sharpen those legal regimes that will best advance MAGA goals. So, for example, the targeting of international students like Mahmoud Khalil for abduction and deportation because of their political views is a terrifying attempt to expand already unjust counterterrorism and immigration laws against Palestinian rights movement, immigrant communities, and civil liberties writ large. The Trump administration and groups like the Heritage Foundation think that if they target the groups they believe to be most vulnerable, so Palestinians, anybody who will defend Palestinian human rights, immigrants, trans people, then nobody will stand up and fight back. But this country's fascist turn is not inevitable. If a united coalition can beat back these attacks now, we can destroy the momentum of Trump's broader agenda. And we understand that what justifies that agenda is the same thing justifying US-backed Israeli genocide and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. We see the twin evils of the cynical use of false accusations of anti-Semitism that ensure the Israeli government can't be held accountable, and also the pervasive and constant racism and dehumanization against Palestinians. Those tactics are decades old, and frankly, they've had bipartisan support. The MAGA right is now consolidating and accelerating those. And so it's on us to remember that they rely on the weaponizing of anti-Semitism and the deploying of anti-Palestinian racism because they've lost the argument.
What did Baden Panada say?
Hello, everyone. I would like to take this opportunity to denounce the vile anti-Semitic attack that took place last night. A Christian German man, Yaron Lischinski, was murdered for no reason aside from his Jewish identity. Lischinski chose to move to Israel, straight into a Palestinian house, and join the IDF. He was not Jewish, he had no connection to Israel, he had no connection to anyone in Israel. He was a Christian German However, this was actually anti-Semitic. After spending a while in the IDF, Liszczynski decided to become a career diplomat for Israel. His job then became to do PR for Israel all over the world, a taste of which can be seen on his Twitter account. Liszczynski did very brave things, like claiming that there was no famine in Gaza, justifying Israeli attacks on hospitals, and denouncing the International Criminal Court for issuing arrest warrants for Israeli leaders complicit in genocide. This entirely innocent man was attacked for no reason aside from his Jewish identity, in spite of the fact that he is actually a Christian from Germany. This attack, carried out by a vile, racist, anti-Semitic terrorist against an agent of the Israeli state which is currently carrying out genocide and massacring dozens of babies every single day, was attacked for no reason aside from his Jewish identity. I wholeheartedly denounce this attack as the vile anti-Semitic hate crime that it actually is. And it makes a ton of sense to call it that, especially given the fact that all the same people who are currently up in arms about this are totally fine with killing anyone who is at all tangentially related to any Palestinian militant group, including in non-combat roles, alongside their entire family, and who have been justifying the mass killing of babies for a year and a half. This all definitely makes sense, and it definitely does not reveal any contradictions in their own stated principles. It definitely does not reveal them to be little more than opportunistic defenders of genocide, defending what they think helps to enable the genocide, and attacking what they think is inconvenient for it. I would like to make clear that I mourn the death of the poor innocent victim of this anti-Semitic attack, Yaron Liszczynski, a German man who was Christian. This man had absolutely no choice in life but to post online about how every single hospital in Gaza was actually Hamas base, and about how Benjamin Netanyahu is not a war criminal. He had no choice but to accept money for this, and I honestly cannot believe that this poor innocent little baby boy has been attacked for no reason aside from his Jewish identity. Did you know that propagandists were convicted at Nuremberg, by the way? Totally unrelated, I just wanted to throw that out there.
I posted this earlier. One of the things that's interesting is if you look at, I think his name is Stryker trial. There we go. Here it is. This is Nazi Germany's Fox News creator. They had basically like a Fox News for Nazi Germany. It was called Der Stürmer, and it was basically a propaganda rag for Nazis, but it wasn't actually formally associated with the Nazi party. And Julius Stryker became a multimillionaire from it, but after World War II, he was actually executed for his propaganda.
I thought it was interesting.
I want to say that Baden Panada, I mean, his point is well taken. His point is well taken, Chad. I can't believe that this Christian German had no choice but to move to Israel, join the IDF, and then become a propagandist for genocide.
The very notion, take, for example, the Hamas Support Network, which is the term used by the Heritage Foundation to describe the Palestinian liberation movement, it's a contrived and baseless smear that is obviously intended to vilify any and all criticism of the Israeli government. And the accusations would be laughable. They're outlandish, they're baseless, if they weren't being translated into such deadly serious policy endangering people's lives right now. But there are millions of people, including the majority of Americans and a growing and massive number of Jews, who want to see a stop to the Israeli genocide of Palestinians, who are outraged at our tax dollars being used to murder and starve tens of thousands of children, and who want the US and Israeli government held accountable for their crimes against humanity. And it's in the face of these repressive attacks that our only option is to be bolder, clearer in defense of Palestinian life every single day, and to be demanding justice, equality, and freedom for all people, no exceptions.
That's Stephanie Fox, Executive Director of Jewish Voice for Peace. One of the groups that Project Esther identifies, as she refers to it, as a Hamas support organization, HSO. Also, they refer to HSN's Hamas Support Network. If you can talk more about that label.
Yeah, so Project Esther focuses on anti-Zionist groups such as Jewish Voice for Peace, but they aim to go much more broader than that. So there's a whole network, according to them, that includes not just those groups, but large nonprofits like the Tides Foundation, George Soros as a mastermind on top of this pyramid that they showed in pitch decks to potential donors. Then, of course, there's colleges and universities that are harboring these organizations, members of Congress, senators, the media, really anybody, like I said before, who has criticized Israel or participated in any sort of pro-Palestinian activity.
How has the Trump administration begun to fulfill some of the objectives outlined by the Heritage Foundation's Project Esther?
So I want to be clear that the Trump administration would not speak with me for this story, and Heritage says it could just be a coincidence that they don't know if they're actually following the blueprint. But according to my analysis, the Trump administration and other Republicans have called for more than half of the actionable goals in Project Esther, or they appear to have called for them at least. And so I think it's worth looking at the document in full to have an idea of what else we might see coming down the line.
You write in the piece, Project Esther's architects envisioned outcomes that at the time might have seemed far-fetched. Now, 4 months after Trump has taken office, Heritage Foundation leaders are taking an early victory lap.
Yeah, so again, they won't say for sure. And if you recall last year, Project 2025 was so contentious. It became such a big talking point during the election.
Is this actually true? This is just a Twitter account. Got to give me better sources for something like a dramatic explosion in, Tel Aviv. And I think you should have a better discernment than that as well. You know what I mean? It's like, if there's a massive explosion happening in Tel Aviv, I think it'll probably be reported not just on a Twitter account. You need to learn how to think critically about events.
Campaign that Trump had to distance himself from it, so they're very careful to keep their distance from each other, but they do say that they meet regularly with officials from the administration, and Mr. Greenway said to me that it was no coincidence that we're seeing actions such as billions of dollars withheld to universities for federal funding. We're seeing calls to monitor the social media of immigrants for quote unquote anti-Semitic activity. We're seeing the attempts to deport people who have criticized Israel or argued for Palestinian rights. And so all of that is very
they're making their last batch of pennies. Wow.
Clearly laid out in Project Esther.
And what Republican lawmakers are involved in formulating the objectives of Project Esther?
I think there's a really broad brush. You see people in the administration, Republicans in Congress. It's really hard to just pick one or two because it's really widespread.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us. The response of Project Esther to your report, the Heritage Foundation people behind it?
I haven't heard from them, but I think they're very explicit that this is what they're doing. They hadn't commented publicly before this, and I really had to bug them for a while to get them to comment. But this is all laid out online, and it has been for months.
Well, I want to thank you for being with us. We'll certainly link to your report in the New York Times. The report headlined, "The Group Behind Project 2025 Has a Plan to Crush the Pro-Palestinian Movement." I want to thank Katie J.M. Baker, author of that article in the New York Times. As we wrap up this segment, we're going to turn to the final comments of Dr. Noor Abdullah. She spoke on Sunday night at the People's graduation for Columbia University. It was a gathering of hundreds of people allied with the students who were involved with protesting at Columbia University over the last year. Dr. Noor Abdullah, who is a dentist here in New York, gave birth to the couple's first child, Dean, last month. She held her child wearing a graduation cap that had a Palestinian flag on it as she accepted a diploma on her husband, Mahmoud Khalil's behalf. She addressed the crowd.
I'd like to end by reading a statement from Mahmoud that he wanted me to share with you all. Thank you for holding me in your hearts today. It has been 2 months since I was taken from my family and from you, detained simply for speaking the truth about Palestine. Columbia University, the place where we sought knowledge, justice, and truth, chose silence instead of solidarity. It failed me, but you didn't. You showed up. You reminded me that while institutions may abandon us, the people never will. Today, I want to say congratulations. You've made it through, perhaps not with degrees, but with your voices, your integrity, and your compassion intact. I'm endlessly proud to be among you, and I carry your love with me every day. Please keep carrying mine. And thank you all.
That was Dr. Noor Abdallah. At the end of the event, graduates lined up. They're actually graduating this week from various schools at Columbia University to receive their diplomas. And projected on the back of the stage, the church on the Upper West Side, was a diploma for Mahmoud Khalil, also for Dr. Noor Abdallah, and for their baby, who Mahmoud Khalil has never seen, for Dean Abdallah. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.
Single moms in university are some of the strongest type of everyday human beings I know. I had the luck of being in a long-term study group with a single mother in university, and she inspired me 4 times a week. That's very, very sweet. I saw Jonathan Greenblatt mention Hassan with basically no evidence. I did see that. I think everybody here should recognize that this is a moment of possible fascist suppression, so we need to keep ourselves smart. Defamation per se, Hassan needs to drop his chicken shit attitude about suing people. I mean, I think suing the head of the ADL is pretty much the most hopeless fucking plan in the world, without a doubt. I mean, like, come on, man. He probably has, like, 15 law firms ready to work pro bono to drown you in endless fucking motions. Discovery. The judge is probably a fucking ADL member. It is, like, legitimately impossible.
Let's go back to sleep, Rahaf. We're so tired.
You're back.
This is Miss Rachel, hanging out with her new friend, Rahaf. Miss Rachel is like YouTube's Mr. Rogers, with millions of subscribers and billions of views.
Can you nod yes?
And Rahaf is a 3-year-old double amputee from Gaza. She lost her legs when her home was bombed, and months later was medically evacuated to the U.S.
إحنا رايحين على أمريكا عشان نكمل العلاج.
Miss Rachel saw a video of the little girl, now living with her mom and a host family in Missouri, watching her show.
She's just so precious. Hopping like a bunny, and she was kind of hopping on the couch.
And arranged to have Rahaf come visit her in New York. Rahaf is part of a new group of fans Miss Rachel discovered last year, refugees of the war in Gaza.
I was tagged in a video of a toddler and a brother and a sister watching in a tent, and I saw the toddler swaying and the little girl smile, and I was just so touched that I could bring a little bit of joy to them during unimaginable circumstances.
Did you know that you had this audience?
No, I was completely surprised. Someone wrote, "This made me realize that these kids are like mine and like ours." And I know so many parents that enjoy our show feel the same way. They say, as a mom, I just think about, I see my babies. All children are worthy.
She's posted more and more about Gaza as the war has gone on, highlighting the humanitarian crisis and launching a fundraiser for kids. She's gotten supportive comments, but there's also been backlash.
The bullying is so bad. It's so bad. But I can handle this.
You seemed very emotional about the bullying that you said you'd gotten for speaking out.
The idea that caring for one group of children means that you don't care for another group of children is false, and it's so hurtful because I care so deeply for all kids.
In April, an advocacy group called Stop Anti-Semitism called her a mouthpiece for Hamas. A group accused you of essentially acting as a foreign agent and asked, for the Attorney General to investigate you for spreading propaganda.
Obviously, that's not true. I care deeply about all children, Israeli, Palestinian, Jewish, Muslim, Christian.
I think that this specific example, I want you to understand that evil is real. I think a lot of, as a Marxist, as a leftist, as, an atheist, there's this like, the word evil carries kind of like a spiritual or theological weight to it. And for me, that's not what it is. It represents pure, malicious, and warped, malevolent, vile hate. And that is what the Zionist extremists who support the genocide of the Palestinians are. They're malicious against, they're supremacists toward all of humanity. And in order for their plan to go forward, they can't have any prominent people openly calling for the protection of Palestinians, even children. And that to me is pure fucking evil. Stuff like this makes Zionists look deranged and rotten to their core.
I wouldn't be Miss Rachel if I didn't speak up for them and speak up for all of them.
Miss Rachel has also used her platform to express grief over the deaths of Israeli children and said she's met with the family of hostages still in captivity.
Oh, she's keeping the walker with her.
Here in the U.S., Rahaf was fit for prosthetics and has learned how to walk again. A group called Palestinian Children's Relief Fund helped her and her mom get out. But her dad and 2 brothers are still in Gaza.
ورهف محظوظة كتير طبعا إنه رهف قدرت تطلع بس في أطفال تانيين لسه موجودين بغزة وبتمنى إنه هدول الأطفال إنه يطلعوا ويتعالجوا زي رهف. طبعا في أطفال كتير لسه ما زالوا طبعا تحت الركام. أنا بشوف هذا الإشي طبعا لأنه بشوف أولادي كيف مجرد ما يحكوا مع رهف ولا حتى يشوفوها إنه ماسكة خبزة ولا بتاكل بصيروا يسألوا فيها. طبعا هذا الإشي كتير بوجعني.
Anything is possible for Rahaf, and she has healthy food, and she has clean water, and she has wonderful medical care. This girl is thriving. We have to do this for all kids because they all deserve that.
All right, chat, hold on.
Let's go back to sleep, Rahaf. We're so tired.
This is Miss Rachel, hanging out with her new friend Rahaf. Miss Rachel is like YouTube's Mr. Rogers, with millions of subscribers and billions of views.
Can you nod yes?
And Rahaf is a 3-year-old double amputee from Gaza. She lost her legs when her home was bombed, and months later was medically evacuated to the U.S.
إحنا رايحين على أمريكا عشان نكمل العلاج.
Miss Rachel saw a video of the little girl, now living with her mom and a host family in Missouri, watching her show.
She's just so precious. Hopping like a bunny, and she was kind of hopping on the couch.
Sorry about that, chat. I had a doctor's appointment coming up, so they were calling me. I had to answer that real quick. It was DoorDash. I don't think I've gotten any delivery in fucking weeks and weeks, which is very good. I'm trying to get out of the delivery. Another prostate exam. I haven't gone to the doctor for a checkup in 10 years. So I figured now is the time. Your partner is door dashing you on every stream every day. That's what you do. Great white male syndrome. Men don't go to the doctor. Apparently the CIA has also shot someone outside the gates of the agency headquarters this morning. Sorry, chat. I was looking at Fox 5 Washington, D.C. coverage, and it just looks like they just had a video looking at the gate of the CIA headquarters.
A person was shot and wounded on CIA property in McLean, Virginia, early May 22nd. Police say the shooting was non-fatal. The CIA has started an investigation into the shooting. A 27-year-old woman reportedly crashed into the headquarters gate before being shot by law enforcement. The front gate of the CIA McLean headquarters has been closed until further notice while the investigation is underway. It's the second major story out of the CIA headquarters this year. A man fired shots into the air and held a gun to his own head at the headquarters in March, leading to an hours-long standoff. He eventually surrendered and was taken into custody. Roads closed for hours during the standoff. In 2021, a man made a bomb threat toward the headquarters and was shot by an FBI agent.
looking at what we know about the suspected shooter. He has been identified as Elias Rodriguez, a 30-year-old man from Chicago. And our chief investigative reporter, Eric Flack, is here with more on that, because we know the alleged shooter, again, from Chicago, Flack, but what else have you found out about his background?
Yeah, Simone, we're starting to kind of piece this puzzle together. According to his LinkedIn page, which we have confirmed through his employer, Elias Rodriguez worked for a trade organization representing the homeopathic alternative medicine industry. This is that LinkedIn page. Rodriguez lists his most recent job as administrative assistant for the Chicago-based American Osteopathic Information Association. Now, 2 hours ago, the group sent me this statement. We are shocked and saddened to learn that an AOIA employee has been arrested as a suspect in this horrific crime. Both the AOIA and AOA stand ready to cooperate with the investigation in any way we can. We extend our deepest sympathy to the victims' loved ones, wishing them peace, comfort, and strength during this unimaginably difficult time. We are still working to learn more about Rodriguez's alleged motivation. Police searching Rodriguez's home right now in Chicago. The FBI said the shooting will be investigated as a possible hate crime. The moments after last night's shooting were chaotic. Rodriguez dressed in a blazer, slacks, and button-down shirt. In fact, a woman at the event told CBS this morning she and her friend actually tried to comfort the alleged shooter, thinking he was a bystander.
He was covered in rain and just looking really distressed and scared. And we were comforting him because we thought that he was just somebody out in the street looking for a safe place to stay because he heard some gunshots. And even one of my friends asked him, "Can I get you some water? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, that'd be great."
Now, based on some social media chatter this morning, a group called the Party for Socialism and Liberation is denying ties to Rodriguez, posting on X, "We reject any attempt to associate the PSL with the DC shooting. Elias Rodriguez is not a member of the PSL. He had a brief association with one branch of the PSL that ended in 2017. Simone, much more to be learned in the hours and days ahead, hopefully, with that update. Rafa is standing by for soon.
Look, we certainly...
I think a lot of people who do nothing but post online are oftentimes the people that, you know, when you see someone posting online, your mental model is to go, okay, that's a 30-year-old adult man. Like when you see an avatar, you don't know who it is, your first reaction to go is that is a 30-year-old adult man. Most of the time when they're saying something really annoying or stupid, they are a literal child pretending. The most annoying people on the internet are literally like at most 20-year-old children. And so whenever somebody's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe Zoran is saying this is a bad thing," or "I can't believe AOC is saying this is a bad thing," or "Wow, I can't believe PSL sold out," or whatever, you're a fucking child. You're a literal child. America has, I want to explain this to you, secret police, and they have a license to kill. And they can go to your bank and take every dollar you own. They can evict you from your home. They get you fired from your job. They could arrest you. They could prosecute you. They could harass you. They have no limit to what they can do. They could torture you. They could disappear you. They do. I think a lot of people are in delusional mode. And this is what happens. So PSL is absolutely required to formally distance themselves from murder, because the organization will be disbanded by force if they don't. Just like I condemn the murder, because I will be banned from Twitch if I don't. And if you're not aware of that, you will also be banned from Twitch if you do anything to condone it, because it is illicit. And the state has unlimited power against groups that advocate for this kind of shit. And if you post dumb shit on the internet, the FBI will visit you.
Certainly appreciate you helping us break down what is fact and what is just chatter on social media, because there's a lot intersecting right now. Yeah. We appreciate your reporting for us, Flack. Thank you.
Okay.
We are continuing to follow developing news out of the district. 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy shot and killed in Northwest last night. The Embassy of Israel to the U.S. has identified them by their first names as Yaron and Sarah. They were gunned down while leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum along 3rd and F Streets.
Some of the video that you saw first on Fox 5 shows the person believed to be the suspect being detained at the scene. He's identified as 31-year-old Elias Rodriguez of Chicago, and you can hear him in the video yelling, "Free Palestine." Now, we also have new video of that 31-year-old being detained by D.C. police. Yoni Kalam, who was at the event and took that video, joins us now. And first of all, I appreciate you joining us this morning. Second of all, we just showed some of that video. Walk us through what you saw, what you heard and experienced.
I refuse to cower in the face of fascism. No one's talking about cowering. It's not cowering to be behind cover on a battlefield. That's called tactics, dumb fuck. Oh my God, I can't believe you're not standing out in the middle of no man's land, you coward. Immediately gets turned into fucking paste. There was like man, I can't remember which movie it was. I really want to show it because it has a really great scene where it's like the very beginning of World War I. And there's like these machine gun, there's this machine gun crew and they're like marching with like a rifle company. This is like before the first battles of World War I. And the riflemen like shoot very precisely at some targets. And then they ask the machine gunners to shoot at the targets precisely. And they miss. And the riflemen are like, somebody tell me if you see this movie. And the riflemen like mock the machine gun crew. And then like a couple hours later, there's like the first contact with the German army. And the like machine gunners just like absolutely mow down an entire column. Is it 1917? I don't feel like that is 19. If someone could find me the scene, that would be funny. It would be good. The reason why I want to show you this is there is a difference between cowardice and tactics. Tactics is understanding that fighting wars and battles is about achieving objectives. And one of the main reasons why civilizations lost battles and wars in history is because of people who were impetuous, who didn't listen to reason, who were more interested in showing off how brave and badass they are, who went out and got themselves fucking killed. And the effective armies and civilizations are those that would take advantage of that. Like the Mongols. The reason why the Mongols won so many fucking wars is because they would goad people. They would do false retreats. They would encourage the impetuousness of their enemy. They would overextend their enemy. And they would, when the enemy was in a elevated position and dug in, they would pretend to rout and draw out, attacks. That is not cowardice. That's called tactics, dumb fuck. So I'm encouraging you to use tactics. Don't make yourself a target. Make them the target.
Sure.
It's called Our World War. Okay, fuck. If you found this.
Relying on that. Yeah, so have a fairly well.
Hold on, Chad. I'm looking at
The
this.
Germans are here. How many? Fucking all of them. Got civilians instead.
Here we go. We found it. Brave they were. They marched into a water-cooled machine gun. The machine guns in World War I were water-cooled. That means that machine guns you normally see nowadays are air-cooled, and they're more precise than back then. Back then, that's what the giant barrel assembly is. It is a water-cooled barrel, so they could shoot more without it melting, because machine guns literally melt. Like the barrels melt from the heat.
Before I get into the story, I just want to take a moment and say, we're thinking of Yaron and Sarah and their families. May their memory be a blessing. It's absolutely horrific that these beautiful couple were set to get married, and they were unfortunately gunned down. We all gathered at a AJC event, that's the American Jewish Committee. And the irony of this whole story is the event was all about bridging the gap between Muslim, Christian, and Jewish organizations who are working together to bring humanitarian aid to Gaza. So this was a event with over 30 with staffers from over 30 embassies from around the world, people from the State Department, young professionals that were interested in learning more, but also.
Does anybody, could someone fact check that for me? Does anybody know what the event actually was?
A dialogue and an opportunity to figure out how people on the ground were working together, Palestinian, Israeli, and other, to bring aid to the people that need it most.
Like, I don't know that I believe that. I'm gonna skip. I actually don't. Here's the thing. I don't think I can actually watch that guy talk because he seems like a blatant type. He seems like a propagandist liar. So I can't directly refute what he's saying. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off because he's not trustworthy. He doesn't have. There's no proof being provided but his word, and he's just a liar.
Democracy depends on a free press. Please support our independent journalism at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermeen Sheikh.
We turn now to look at how criticism of Israel is growing in Europe as the UK pauses trade talks and the EU reviews its relationship with Israel. This is British Prime Minister Keir Starmer speaking Tuesday.
But first, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to say something about the horrific situation in Gaza, where the level of suffering, innocent children being bombed again, is utterly intolerable. The recent announcement that Israel will allow a basic quantity of food into Gaza, a basic quantity, is totally and utterly inadequate. So we must coordinate our response, because this war has gone on for far too long. We cannot allow the people of Gaza to starve.
Keir Starmer, the British Prime Minister, long an ally of Israel. The British Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, also condemned Israel's actions in Gaza in a speech to the House of Commons.
Prime Minister Netanyahu, end this blockade now and let the aid in. Regrettably, Madam Deputy Speaker, despite our efforts, this Israeli government's egregious actions and rhetoric have continued. They are isolating Israel from its friends and partners around the world, undermining the interests of the Israeli people, and damaging the image of the State of Israel in the eyes of the world. Therefore, today, I'm announcing that we have suspended negotiations with this Israeli government on a new free trade agreement.
The comments of the British Foreign Secretary and Prime Minister came days after as many as 500,000 people took part in a massive march for Palestine in London to mark the 77th anniversary of the Nakba. Meanwhile, the European Union has announced it's reviewing its relationship with Israel.
We're joined now by two guests. From Brussels, Lynn Boylan is with us, Irish member of the European Parliament, chair of the European Parliament's Delegation for Relations with Palestine. And joining us from London, British MP, former Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn. Welcome back to Democracy Now!, MP Corbyn. If you could start off by responding to the shift. We just were in Gaza talking to a British doctor who's there helping the children and the people of Gaza, saying that what Keir Starmer has done does make a difference. Now, you are certainly opposed to the Prime Minister and so much of the support of Israel. What is causing the shift in the British government's position?
It's pretty clear that the huge demonstrations in Britain and the outpouring of public condemnation of Israel's bombardment of Gaza has eventually forced the British government into a slightly different position, in that they've now suspended, as you reported, the trade talks with Israel. They claim to have suspended all arms supplies to Israel, but we question that because we believe that parts for the F-35 jets are still being sold to Israel, and we're also questioning the amount of arms that have been sold over the last few months. But there's no doubt that the position of the Palestinian people being starved to death, bombed to death in Gaza, has forced the British government into a different position. We are keeping up all the pressure we can in order to get aid in, but also to end the occupation, because that is clearly what the ICJ position is: end the occupation of Gaza and of the West Bank.
Well, let's bring in Lynn Boylan. Lynn, you're a member of European Parliament. Could you talk about, and also chair of the European Parliament's delegation for relations with Palestine, if you could talk about the significance of this review. The European Union is, of course, Israel's largest trading partner. But what do you think could come of this review, given that there is no unanimous position within the European Union on Israel?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'd echo what Jeremy is saying, is that the only reason why the EU has announced this review, and there isn't even an overall, like there isn't even a majority at the EU Council level to review the trading agreement, is because of the people power and the pressure that is coming on politicians right across the European Union. And I'd encourage people to continue to do that. But I would say that the time for a review is long since past. So what we're calling for is to suspend the agreement pending the review. The review can take place. They can do the research. If they haven't seen what everybody has seen on their phone, is that Israel is not upholding human rights and Article 2 of the trade.
Yeah, he was just blatantly lying. He was just blatantly lying. He was blatantly lying. As we figure it, as we see. I knew it was bullshit. I was like, if there's no way this was like a meeting to figure out Gaza fucking aid. It was the Young Diplomats Reception. This special event brings together Jewish young professionals and DC diplomatic community for an evening dedicated to fostering unity and celebrating Jewish heritage. Join us for heavy appetizers, cocktails, conversations, and a special guest speaker. Yeah, he was just blatantly lying, as I knew he would be. I mean, like, what the fuck is happening? It's like, you just go on television, blatantly lie about the nature of the event. Disgusting. Like, what the fuck?
Agreement, it should be suspended, but we're calling for them to suspend it, then carry out your review and come back with your findings. But what we're fearing is that the announcing a review is like kicking it down the road. It's, I suppose, addressing the people pressure, but actually not doing anything concrete to address the situation. So we're also calling on MEPs right across Europe who are frustrated by the lack of European-wide action to call on their national governments to end trade with Israel. For example, in Ireland, we have what's called the Occupied Territories Bill, which would cease trade, obviously just with the occupied territories, but it would be a significant message sent out that at least Ireland wants to be compliant with international law, and we're encouraging MEPs across Europe to do similar initiatives in their countries.
And so, Jeremy Corbyn, if you could talk about what sanctions the UK has already imposed on Israel and against whom, and talk about the new inquiry. You've been calling for a new inquiry into Britain's relationship with Israel. If you could tell us what that's about.
Sure. On June the 4th, I'm introducing a private member's bill into the House of Commons calling for an independent inquiry into the whole process of policy making in relation to Gaza, the West Bank, and Britain's arms supplies to Israel, particularly during the period since October 2023. This is similar to the inquiry that was headed by Sir John Chilcot eventually to inquire into policy making surrounding the Iraq War. My purpose in doing this is because the government has obfuscated on many, many occasions over the past 18 months over the level of arms supplies, over trade, over aid, over credits and so on to Israel, and also particularly about the manufacture of Israeli weapons in Britain, particularly in Sheffield and other places where parts with the F-35 are made. So a group of us in Parliament have been raising this consistently. The issue of arms supplies goes something like this. Britain was and remains to some extent a supplier of arms to Israel. David Lammy, the Foreign Secretary, suspended 30 arms licenses out of 300 that were in operation without ever specifying what these 30 licenses were. And to be honest, I still don't know what those 30 arms licenses are. He claims they were oversupply of weapons that could be used for crimes against humanity. But we later discovered that many weapons have continued to be supplied and yesterday we published a report from Progressive International and other groups, which is outlining the whole case for suspending arms supplies and pointing out the dishonesty of the British government over the past 18 months on this. And that report is being circulated to MPs and will be part of the case I'll be making to the British Parliament on June the 4th. The question of suspending the trade talks is an interesting one and a very interesting development, because to some extent it is running in tandem and parallel rather with what the European Union is doing, because Britain is no longer a member of the European Union. We welcome that suspension. There has always been the legal case against buying settlement goods because of the illegality of the settlements, but it has been very hard to trace what are settlement goods and what isn't. But actually, a consumer boycott is gathering pace. The members of the Cooperative Society, a very big retailer in Britain with a huge membership base across the whole country, voted by 70% last week to request their board to suspend all purchases from Israel, so no Israeli products would be stocked in co-op shops. And there's a lot of pressure on to the other big retailers to do the same. So there's been an enormous shift in public opinion, and it's caused by utter revulsion at seeing emaciated children starved to death or dying on the operating theatre where there's no anesthetics or even antiseptics to treat their terrible conditions they're suffering. People can stomach no longer the sight of Palestinian children being starved and murdered by the Israeli occupation of Gaza.
MP Corbyn, the UK sanctioned violent West Bank settlers, but the British Foreign Minister Lammy stopped short of targeting Israeli officials. Can you talk about the significance of those sanctions and what you think has to go further? The sanctions themselves against individual violent settlers are important and a good step forward. So far, the only sanctions apply to Benjamin Netanyahu and Benny Gantz, who have arrest warrants out from the International Criminal Court, and Britain, as a signatory to the Rome Convention, is required to carry out those arrest warrants should either of those individuals turn up in UK territory. What David Lammy stopped short of doing was what many of us requested, which is a wider sanctioning of officials in the Israeli government who've been a party to the decision-making on the bombardment of Gaza. Their names are well known, but also of Israeli Defense Force High Command, who are also obviously very much part of the decision-making process on which buildings to bomb and which buildings blow up. Not that there's many buildings left in Gaza that are still to be blown up. And so we are continuing that pressure. So there's a big move in Parliament on military equipment, on demanding aid get in rapidly to Gaza, and also sanctions against Israeli officials. And so changes are happening, but it's desperately slow, and already over 60,000 have died in Gaza. Can I also ask you about your response to what happened in Washington? All these young embassy and consular staffers from different consulates and organizations gathered at the Jewish Museum, and a young man opened fire, killing 2 of those who worked at the Israeli embassy. Your response? It's absolutely shocking. Nobody should be shot. Nobody should be killed at any event anywhere around the world. That is not the way to solve the issue. And so we have to be resolute in demanding peace for all, and also recognize that in the case of Britain and also in the case of the USA, the big demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people are of Christian, Jewish and Muslim and people of no particular faith. And one of the biggest groups on our demonstrations in support of the Palestinian people is actually the Jewish bloc. I think a lot of what people are not willing to reckon with is, unless you have a state that is willing to prosecute a war, you're not fighting a war. Or unless you have an organization that can replicate the organs of a state over a territory where it has a monopoly of violence, then you can't do wars. A lot of people have a very childish understanding of resistance, of conflict, of violence.
And that is a major impediment to organizing the left. What I just said is very basic shit. And yet, if I talk to 1 million leftists in America, very few of them would even know what the fuck I'm talking about. Or they would disagree, which would be very funny because there's nothing to disagree with. I got approved for a home loan. I know we were talking about serious stuff, but I wanted to shout out because I'm excited. Congratulations, buddy. Weird timing, though. Weird timing because, like, April home sales dropped to the slowest pace in that month since 2009. Oh, no, 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 no. Home sales in April fell as consumers faced high home prices, growing concern over the economy and employment. I hope you underbid. I hope you underbid ask. Would a home loan to buy bonds be a good idea? Unlikely that you're going to get a loan that's going to be less than the treasury rate. You see what I mean? Like, you're going to borrow against your house at 7% and buy bonds at 5%? I mean, that's what your bank does. The bank borrows money and pays 3%, and then it loads it to you at 7%. That's called being a bank. That's what a bank does. Did you see Corbyn mentioning the new party? Oh, yeah? What? Let's fucking go! Jeremy Corbyn has said, I hear the call for a new political party. I fully understand that, and that political party needs to be well-informed and effective. By next year's local elections, we're going to have something in place. I hope this is real.
Jeremy Corbyn suggests a new party will be in place before 2026 elections.
I don't know why, but the idea of programming a computer to sound British is fucking hilarious. Oi, bruv.
Speaking at a recent event, former Labour Party leader Jeremy Corbyn addressed the call for a new political party, saying, "This whole cause is coming together so that by next year's local elections,
this whole cause,
long before that I hope, we're going to have something in place that is very clear and everyone will want to be part of and support." Corbyn has previously spoken about how he's been supporting efforts to build the resistance via community empowerment. His most recent comments came at an event in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire. The hosts, the People's Alliance for Change and Equality, PACE, plan to connect campaigners, trade unionists, and politicians across the metropolitan borough of Kirklees that oppose war, cuts, and racism. PACE officially launched on the 10th of May. And with local voters able to elect councillors in all the borough's seats in 2026, PACE seeks to put forward candidates to challenge establishment parties. Jeremy Corbyn, I hear the call for a new party. Jeremy Corbyn was among other high-profile speakers from the left, including Jamie Driscoll, Claudia Webb, and Salma Yaqub. At the PACE event, Corbyn said, "I hear the call for a new political party. I fully understand that, and that political party needs to be well-informed and effective. One that gives out a central message of peace, of justice, of equality, of diversity within our society." Mike Foster is an anti-cuts campaigner at the heart of PACE. And in his own speech, he insisted, Jeremy is clearly pointing in the right direction. With Labour widely discredited as a party of austerity, and with the danger of Nigel Farage and Reform's rise, it is clearer than ever that a left-wing political alternative is needed. One which can say that it's not migrants or trans people selling off our NHS and cutting disability benefits. It's the super-rich. We need to launch this alternative now. It's coming. People. Watch this space, and get involved. From Newcastle to Southport, and Enfield to Kirklees, people are uniting to build movements in their communities that will feed into a national party that can take on the Labour, Reform, and Tory wings of the establishment. Assemblies are popping up across the country to put local people at the heart of the resistance. And trade unionists are also ready to step in and play a role.
I think for me, this is exactly what we need. And Jeremy Corbyn once again showing he's just better than Bernie. He's a better version of Bernie, 100%. If he actually does it, he'll once again, hopefully he learned his lesson. Hopefully he learned his lesson about centrist scum and never trusting them. Fucking cinema.
Lynn Boylan, finally, before we end, if you could also respond to events here, Washington, D.C., the killing of these two Israeli embassy staffers, and then the fact that within the EU, it's France that's leading efforts for the official recognition of Palestine. If you could talk about the significance of that, France meeting Saudi Arabia next month, apparently in New York. Foreign Secretary Lamy has said he's also in talks with France and Saudi Arabia about officially recognizing Palestine. Please.
Yeah, and just to echo, I suppose, what Jeremy has said, and send my condolences to the family of the two who were shot dead last night. Nobody should be losing their lives. What we want to see is peace. We want to have a long-standing peace in Gaza, in Palestine, for the Palestinian people and Jewish people to be able to live in peace. In regards to President Macron and leading the case for the recognition of the state of Palestine, it is very welcome. Ireland and Spain recognised Palestine. I think it was about a year ago. Sweden some years before. It is important. It's a really significant step, and I'm sure it'll be very much welcomed by the Palestinian people. But for me, the urgency within the EU now is ending the blockade, is demanding the ceasefire, and demanding the ceasefire means that EU countries need to stop supplying weapons to Israel. So while Jeremy was talking about Britain's role in arming Israel, we have countries within the EU who are significant weapons providers to the Israeli state. If they wanted this conflict and this war and genocide to end tomorrow, then they need to stop supplying weapons to Israel. And the F-35s is a critical part of that. We also need to see the aid getting in, and the aid needs to be delivered and supported through UNRWA. And we're fighting very hard back at any push to militarize the aid agenda. And we're seeing Israel talking about setting up compounds where, women would have to go to areas, putting themselves in vulnerable positions, people with disabilities, children having to go, and that Israel would decide who is deserving and who isn't deserving of aid. This cannot be tolerated. What we need is UNRWA to be allowed to do their job, lift the blockade, let the trucks in, and deliver the aid to the people who so desperately need it. Those children, 14,000 children who are at risk of dying from starvation in the next 48 hours. That's where our focus should be. Absolutely recognise the state of Palestine. But right now, the people of Palestine need food, they need medicine, they need water, and they need to
Mike,
stop.
can you explain who Corbyn is? Corbyn is the former leader of the Labour Party, which is the center-left party in the UK. And he was he ran two general elections, one where he massively overperformed expectations and barely lost, and a second where he lost to the Conservatives. He was sabotaged tremendously by the right-wing members of the Labour Party, and then he was pushed out of the party, and they accused him of being anti-Semitic because he stood up to Israel, basically. It was a Zionist op. He ran as an independent last election cycle and won an overwhelming victory against the Labour Party candidates who were inserted into his district to try to win, and they got their asses clapped. So he is now the Labor just won a really wide margin victory in the last general election to take power because the conservative movement in the UK split between a new radical far right party called the Reform Party, and they have their traditional center right party called the Conservative Party. And so the Reform party split the vote, the right-wing vote, and so Labour was able to win a lot of seats with like 31% of the vote or 34% of the vote, or even less sometimes. So there's this huge like Labour majority in the legislature, even though the number of people who voted for them actually went down from when Corbyn ran. So Labour has this incredibly wide but very shallow majority. And now the Labour right wing has come in and implemented austerity, ruining the British government, and kind of kowtowed to right wing narratives on immigration. Basically pulling a what if Kamala Harris had won test, and basically the Labour Party's support has never been lower. His popularity has cratered to almost zero. The Labour Party is in shambles, and the far right has expanded massively in popularity. So you get to see what would have happened had the centrist Democrats won, and the result is that the far right in the UK is overwhelmingly popular. And so now people are calling on Jeremy Corbyn to start a new leftist party free from the sabotage and interference of trying to form a coalitional party with the right-wing centrist neoliberals and their Zionist, supporters. I don't really see this working, guys. This is posted an hour ago and it has 100 likes. This shit is just not catching on. But we'll see.
Stop the bombs dropping on them.
Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like you. Please give today at democracynow.org/give.
We have a similar issue with our union, and some board members are considering starting their own union. Do you have advice? I usually find splitting union to be a pretty bad. All right. I want to cover some other news real quick. The Republicans just passed with one vote their budget bill, and this has been Wall Street's response.
On this vote, the yeas are 215, the nays are 214, with one answering present. The bill is passed.
3 Democrats currently died in office, including Jerry Connolly.
USA, USA.
It's been a really remarkable 24 hours on Capitol Hill, especially for House Speaker Mike Johnson, who had set this incredibly ambitious deadline of getting this bill out of the House of Representatives by Memorial Day weekend. Now, so many of his members even were skeptical that this was going to be possible. Yesterday morning, you had members of the House Freedom Caucus saying that they needed another 7 to 10 days to negotiate in order to pass this bill, arguing that this deadline was really arbitrary, that the Speaker was trying to speed this up too quickly, and yet the Speaker was able to just get this finished. The Speaker is still on the floor, receiving high fives, hugs, people trying to get photographs with him as they are celebrating this victory. Republicans winning this vote 215 to 214. There were still 2 Republican holdouts, Thomas Massie and Warren Davidson, who voted against this bill because of concerns that it is adding too much to the country's deficit. But still, this is a huge victory where Speaker Johnson was able to bring some of the moderates together, some of those swing district New York Republicans together, and members of the House Freedom Caucus. And he did this in a couple of different ways. One, he gave the House Freedom Caucus what they wanted, which was expediting how quickly work requirements for Medicaid went into effect. He also moved up the deadline for how quickly some of the energy tax credits expired from the period where Joe Biden had passed his own reconciliation bill. And then, of course, for some of those New York moderates, there was an increase in how much people in their districts can deduct in state and local tax. Republicans had to make a very difficult decision. Were they going to vote against Donald Trump's agenda or not? I just spoke with one of the conservatives who had been a holdout over the weekend, and they told me Donald Trump did make a big difference here. His legislative team made a big difference here. But ultimately, Speaker Mike Johnson, who so many of his colleagues say is an extremely patient, thoughtful, slow-moving, even when things start to feel like they're building, he doesn't lose his temper. They said that that was really key to this. Democrats.
What is this collaboration as fucking propaganda? No wonder I know what the fuck is this shit? That was dog shit.
Let's turn now to former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner. He's got charts on the potential impact of this huge legislation. Steve, good morning. So let's talk about the deficit and what this House bill, if it does make its way through, if the Senate, which has said it's not going to vote, many Republicans for this, it's just too big. But if it does go through, what would it do to the deficit?
Yeah, as you can imagine, given what Ali just went through and all the lists of things that they're doing, the impact on the deficit is pretty significant. Let's just put some numbers on some of the cuts. First, the extension of the personal income tax reductions that were made during the 2017 bill and are set to expire at the end of this year, $2.2 trillion over 10 years. Raising the standard deduction, $1.3 trillion. The child tax credit, $800 billion. And then you get into Trump's campaign promises, no tax on overtime, car loans, interest, and tips, $200 billion.
Chat, all subscriptions are now tips. All subscriptions are now tips. I need to contact Twitch and be like, how do we get this stuff characterized as a tip? How do we get this characterized as a tip? How do I get this no longer characterized as a royalty or whatever the fuck they characterize it as, and change it to a tip. Dodos are tips for sure, definitely. I believe it's capped at 25K. That's it. Slime and B, thank you for the 5 tier 1s. Come on. Come on. 25K, that's shit. I ain't shit. Come on.
Increasing defense spending. This is his attempt to take Social Security taxes away from seniors so they don't have to pay them by giving them a special deduction. And then you get into the cuts, the student loan changes, the climate funds, and Medicaid, $700 billion of Medicaid cuts. So what does that do to the deficit? Here is the baseline deficit. So even without this...
I honestly, like... this bill is fucking stupid. Honestly, this is awesome, guys. This rules. America is cooked. I think Donald Trump has successfully done it. I no longer consider myself to be an American, like, nationalist in any way. There was some sort of, like, latent, and, you know, we all have a little bit, whether we like it or not, we all have a little bit of a bias in favor of our own country. You know what I mean? Like a little bit like, oh, I want America. Like, I like America. I want Americans to do well. You know what I mean? I think this has fully destroyed it. I think this has done it. This is the moment where I'm just like, all right. I mean, like, okay. Because the Chinese are kicking ass and taking names. Like, China's Xiaomi claims new phone chip rivals Apple at a cheaper price. Xiaomi is winning the battle on pricing on its latest phone. The new Xiaomi 15S Pro starts at $764, making it eligible for a state-subsidized discount, and is significantly cheaper than Apple models containing the company's most advanced phone chip. Xiaomi CEO Li Yun claims his company also has a competitive chip. Li had teased the 3 nanometer chip, last week on Chinese social media app Weibo. He later noted the chip is in mass production and said the company would advance 50 billion won, 6.9 billion, nice, over the next 10 years on its own chip development. So in other words, the whole like, oh, we're going to stop China from having advanced chips is failing completely. Cash on tips, 100 or 60,000 or under income. Oh, come on. Come on. You're supposed to cut my taxes, Republicans. You're supposed to cut my taxes. What are you doing? This is all I want from Republicans. Cut my taxes. Let me have whatever gun. Let me buy a machine gun. Let me buy a grenade. Let me buy a mortar. Let me buy a nuclear bomb. Come on. Come on. Let me have nationwide concealed carry. Like, what? Come on. Like, if you're going to be a Republican piece of shit, let me buy a drum magazine for my AR-15 in California. Stop worrying about electric cars and start doing the fun stuff.
Tax bill, the deficit was essentially going to keep going up over the next 10 years, maybe come down a little bit at the very end, but essentially
I don't know how to pronounce. I don't know
Then you add
Chinese.
in the tax bill that we just talked about, including the fact that they've played the same gimmick they played in 2017, setting up some of these things to expire. And that would make the deficit impact higher, but not as high as if you made all this stuff permanent. The record of Congress, stuff almost always gets made permanent. And so somewhere along in here, they will make this permanent and will end up on this line. And this line is something like $25 trillion of additional debt. Now, I do want to say that the other thing that happened yesterday...
$25 trillion of additional debt! This country has nothing for it, too. It's just shit. It's a shithole country. We don't even have anything for it. Our streets are crumbling. Our housing is dog shit. We don't have any hospitals. We have got nothing for it. What a fucking joke. Incredible.
Not as visible and consequential as these House votes is the fact that the Treasury yields went up very, very sharply yesterday. The Treasury sold some 20-year debt. It didn't go well. The 30-year Treasury bond is now above 5%. What does that mean? That couldn't, well, it means higher rates for mortgage originators and things like that. But what it also means is potentially the bond market starting to say potentially $25 trillion of new debt over the next 10 years is more than we can absorb comfortably.
Yeah, Steve, it can't be overstated the importance of the bond market potentially weighing in here. Let's turn to your second chart with the headline simple but stark and telling. Tax cuts for the wealthy, spending cuts for the poor.
Yeah, Ali alluded to this as well, but let's put some numbers on this. If you're in the top 20% of Americans, you're going to get roughly a 3.7% increase in your after-tax income, really all from these tax cuts. But if you go all the way to the bottom and everything in between essentially leads you to the bottom, if you're in the bottom 20%, you actually lose $800. Why do you lose $800? You get a very small tax cut, and you get a very large cut in Medicaid and these other benefits that we were just talking about that affects the 20% disproportionately. So this is a highly regressive bill that essentially favors the wealthy, doesn't do much for the middle class, and hurts the poor. And then if you want to see this in stark comparison, if we simply eliminated the tax cuts for people making over $500,000 a year, which is roughly what President Biden was proposing, it would save $1.1 trillion. That happens to be just slightly more than the Medicaid cuts and the food stamps, or SNAP cuts, if you will, put together. So if we simply eliminated these tax cuts, we could eliminate these budget cuts on these poor people and end up, from a budget point of view, in the same place.
Better off.
And
Better
Steve,
off,
let's turn to your
actually.
third chart there. Tell us about the impact that this bill would leave on those with insurance.
Yeah, so again, as Ali alluded to, the budget cuts Medicaid in a variety of different ways. Some of it gets complicated. I'm not going to get into all the details. But the biggest piece of it is the work requirements, requiring people to, I think, work 80 hours or perform 80 hours of community service at least a month. Things like Ali mentioned, also checking Medicaid eligibility more frequently. There's making it more difficult for the states to get the Medicaid funds they're getting now, and then some Biden-era rules that made it easier to sign up for Medicaid, repealing those, so it becomes harder to sign up for Medicaid. So what does that mean? As Ali said, the estimates are 8.6 million Americans losing their health insurance. And what's interesting about this chart is if you go back over here before Obamacare went into effect, when we had over 45 million uninsured Americans, it went down, 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 down. In here was Trump 1.0 with his first effort to impose work requirements on Medicaid recipients, so some people became uninsured. Down, down, down again, and now we're looking at taking it back up here and essentially reversing something like 10 years of progress in having fewer and fewer Americans without medical coverage.
And that group of conservatives deciding their votes right now, many of them have decided them, may vote, as Steve just points out, for a bill that adds trillions of dollars to the deficit and the debt. Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Rattner. Steve, thanks as always. Coming up.
We're gonna get more of a deep dive.
Let's get you to Capitol Hill with NBC's Julie Sirkin. Also with us, former Democratic Congressman Joe Crowley of New York, who previously served as the chair of the House Democratic Caucus.
That's the person who AOC beat. So that's Joe Crowley, who's the person AOC beat, and this is Charlie Dent, who is a moderate Republican. Who these type of Charlie Dent style Republicans are extinct. So these are the type of politicians that the media loves, but the voters hate. Yay! Let's get him in. Let's get him in.
And former Pennsylvania Republican Congressman Charlie Dent. Julie, what key changes were made to get the GOP holdouts on board, and will they survive the Senate?
That is the million-dollar question, Anna, and Speaker Mike Johnson certainly hopes they do. He said today that the House and the Senate have been working very closely on this bill, but the reality is that you have just different Republicans in the House and the Senate, right? In the Senate, you have people who represent entire states, and for them, the cuts to Medicaid, the reforms to that program, the cuts to the IRA era, of course, Inflation Reduction Act era, clean energy tax credits will certainly not bode well for them. I want you to take a listen, though, to what the Speaker had to say this morning. Of course, a huge achievement for him either way. Listen.
We look forward to the Senate's timely consideration of this once-in-a-generation legislation. We stand ready to continue our work together to deliver on the one big, beautiful bill, as President Trump named it himself. We're going to send that to his desk. We're going to get there by Independence Day on July 4th. And I encourage our Senate colleagues to think of this as a one-team effort, as we have.
Did you cover Yee saying he's done with anti-Semitism? Oh, wow. Did he shit all over the Palestinian movement and then suddenly with his anti-Semitic Nazi rants, and now he's back to ball licking Israel? Is that happening?
And to modify this as little as possible.
But there are real political implications for the reforms, for example, they made to Medicaid that Senate Republicans are going to be extremely concerned about. You also have the whole issue of the state and local tax deduction. I know you did such a good job explaining it yesterday, but of course this was a provision negotiated at the last minute by Republicans in purple or blue districts in New York, in California, in Pennsylvania, in Illinois, in states with very high property taxes that they are able to deduct from their federal taxes. Republicans negotiating a $40,000 cap. Nobody in the Senate has an appetite for that, especially when it drives the deficit. So you're going to see some changes made on all of those things. And to get this across the finish line by July 4th will certainly be a hurdle for them.
Congressman Dent, are you surprised the party pulled this off on the House side? Concerned it may pass without members even reading what's in it?
I'm not at all surprised that the bill passed, that Trump helped muscle it through to get some of these recalcitrant members on the hard right who were going to melt when Trump got involved. We all knew that. The real question is, how many members walked the plank unnecessarily? Because the Senate will make major changes to this bill. There's no question about it. The Senate never wanted to do one big, beautiful bill. They could still break this thing up. They are going to do less in terms of Medicaid cuts. They're going to do less in terms of SNAP cuts. That's the food assistance programs. They're going to obviously be more protective of the renewable energy credits. And they will also pare down the expansion of the SALT deduction, and probably on student lending. They probably won't go as far as the House. The Senate has a lower threshold for pain than the House. You have to remember that. And so I think this is going to be a dramatically different bill. Those folks on the hard right who were upset with this bill in the House, they're going to really be upset when the Senate gets through with this thing. So right now it's in the Senate's court, and expect a more measured product coming out of there.
So, Congressman Crowley, if you were in Democratic leadership, what would you be telling your members right now after it looks like Trump and Johnson just sort of steamroll the chamber with this bill? Where does the party go from here?
Well, first of all, every Republican owns this bill now. When it only passes by one vote, that means that every person who voted for the bill owns the bill. So, and I think Charlie's 100% right, as is Julie, when he goes to the Senate. And by the way, when Julie said it was that's the $1 million question, it's actually the $4 trillion question. What will the Senate do? And I think Charlie's right. They will pare it down. It will go to conference. I would tell my members that. And they're going to have to vote on this again, except this time, when it comes back to the Senate, some of those moderates may not like this bill when it comes back. Some of the budget hawks may not like it as well. So this is a long ways to go. But I think the message is that they're cutting 14 million people off of Medicaid, that they are adding trillions of dollars to our nation's debt, and it's not being paid for. So there's a lot here that voting no, you can relax on.
Although what I think is a big takeaway is what Trump says goes if you're a Republican. Julie, give us more of a sense of President Trump's role getting Republicans to fall in line and what it could mean as it's working its way through the Senate, which we just discussed might be a little more prickly to some of what's in this bill.
Speaker Mike Johnson and the entire Republican leadership made absolutely no secret in touting the crucial role that the president played in getting his members to fall in line. I want to read you a little statement that the White House released before the vote, saying President Trump is committed to keeping his promises, and failure to pass this bill would be the ultimate betrayal. We know that in a closed-door meeting on Capitol Hill on Tuesday, he called out members by name. He threw the F-bomb around. I mean, this is a president who, of course, is a populist. It's not so much the deficit that concerns him or Medicaid or all of these other provisions. It's getting his legislation and funding his campaign promises, which include mass deportations, his tax cuts, the signature.
This is a good example of why a public option is a bad idea and why Medicare for all, banning private insurance, is the only way. Because you have to demolish the insurance industry and raise it to the ground. That's the only way you create a political constituency strong enough to resist right-wing repeal efforts. Furthermore, if you did something like Medicare for all, it would be so fucking popular that you would win for generations. That's what happened with when we had the most social democratic period of our history. We call it the New Deal. It was a New Deal hyper majority. It realigned politics. It made the Republican Party largely irrelevant except for presidential elections.
Proposal he had in 2017, which costs a lot of money, and the Senate knows that. They want to make that permanent. They want to keep no tax on tips and overtime in the bill. But as you heard from the congressman, this is going to be a wide.
There was also a Senate bill passed to block California from banning gas-only vehicles. California has a law that wants to ban internal combustion engines 2035, and they're trying to prevent California from having states' rights.
Wildly different product if and when it passes the Senate. And we already are hearing from John Thune, from other Republicans who say there's just no way they're going to make that July 4th deadline, Anna.
Again, this is a massive bill. Everyone's still working their way through it. Congressman Crowley, Politico is reporting that even more people than initially projected, which was around 8 million people, could lose Medicaid coverage based on some of these last-minute changes in the bill. And we know the Congressional Budget Office has very specifically said that the country's lowest earners will take a financial hit from this bill. Politically, if Democrats can't turn that around on the GOP in the midterms, then what does that mean?
Yeah, no, that's what I mentioned. I think that especially when many of these Republicans, the moderate Republicans, said they would not vote for a bill that would cut Medicaid. And now they've just voted for a bill that will cut Medicaid. So I do think that there's an awful lot of meat in here for Democrats to exploit, to use politically. But I think more importantly, it really demonstrates the agenda of the Republicans and what their priorities are. And that is to provide a tax break to the wealthiest among us who don't need a tax break, and take that out of the mouths of children, the poorest in our country, from food stamps to Medicaid. It's only increasing poverty, not decreasing poverty in our country.
Congressman Dent, as we continue to pour through the text, we can look at some of the broader projections. This bill would add trillions of dollars to the deficit. 2.3 trillion is on the low end projection, 3.8 trillion on the high end, and that's based on a lot of analysis from several nonpartisan entities and experts. How do you suppose deficit hawks in the GOP defend that? We know there are some who aren't defending it, but they still got it across the finish line. The House Freedom Caucus got on board.
Well, they're going to have a hard time defending it from a deficit standpoint. But what the Senate's likely to do, they're going to call the tax cuts as they are current policy. That will make the deficit number look better. If they call it a current law, then the deficit number would look much worse. So watch that happen. And remember, this whole process is being driven by extending the 2017 tax cuts. That's what the Senate's interested in. That's what Trump is interested in. I don't think the Senate and Trump really want to do a whole lot to Medicaid. I don't think they want to do a whole lot on the spending side, to be perfectly candid. And I suspect the fiscal hawks in the House will be very disappointed with what comes out of the Senate, because they are not going to go, they just are not going to go as far as the House on Medicaid, which is a vulnerability for Republicans with these loss of coverages that are projected by CBO and others.
Julie,
and they may not go as low on salt and state and local taxes as well, Anna.
Okay, so those are two things we'll be watching as this bill continues to work its way through. Now, the upper chamber, before it comes back to the House, before it can land on the president's desk.
If these tax cuts, if this passes, it would steamroll the decline of the U.S. Well, that's what we're living in. We're living in, this is why it's so funny. Like, normally I would be furious, but at this point, it's just funny. I mean, China is out with a 3 nanometer chip the same day that we're like cutting support for student loans. We're attacking healthcare. We are cutting taxes on the hyper rich. We're undermining the clean transition. Like I'm sorry, but this country's just, they're at such an ideological fugue that they can't see what's in front of them. And like, I feel like the United States of America is collapsing. There, you know, like the spending on the military shit doesn't mean the government is going to remain strong. It's collapsing. It's hollowing itself out. It's like going on an all sugar diet. Like, how long could you sustain yourself on an all sugar diet? Like, maybe you could do it for a day or two, but after that, like, what would, you know what I mean? Diabetic shock, teeth rotting, and like you're just gonna pass out.
Get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable. Bitch, don't get too comfortable. Bitch, don't get too comfortable. Better not get too comfortable.
President Trump says tariffs on China won't be as high as 145%, will come down substantially, but won't be zero. Like, one of my favorite things is people going like, there's no manufacturing jobs anymore. Their people are just delusional. There's no manufacturing. There are 120 million manufacturing jobs in China. There are no manufacturing jobs. The America at the absolute peak had 18 million manufacturing jobs. At our absolute peak, we had 18 million. I think we have around 11 million now. There's no manufacturing jobs. It's like one of those things that like people I normally think are pretty intelligent will say. And it's like, you haven't looked into it at all, have you? You haven't looked at all. Actually, I think there was something on the Daily Show recently where they talk about it, and it was kind of funny. I saw a clip of it and I was laughing. Hold on. It was the Patrick McGee. Okay, this is the one. This is what I wanted. What coupon rate at a treasury auction will we have to see to force a policy U-turn? What we would need to see is recession plus high interest rates. I think we're teetering on recession and the interest rates are slowly spiking. Like, as I said earlier in the stream, housing, like the housing market is stalled. April is usually a month where people buy houses. April, May, June. Those are like peak buying months for the market. And it's usually pretty strong through the summer. And then as we get closer to fall, that's when the housing, the housing market tends to slow down. So if this is the worst April since 2009, it's a fucking bad sign. I know someone who's trying to sell a house at a prime location and no one's buying. And the thing about housing is the one part of the economy that you can't outsource. Like, somebody has to be here to fill in the paperwork. Somebody's got to be here to assemble the building or do the remodeling or whatever. It's a massive amount of jobs. So when the housing market slows down, it hits everything. You're overplaying the importance of one company, but I will say this. What makes China better than the US already? It's already over. I want you guys to know this. Everybody is just catching up to reality. China is the most powerful economy in the world. It is the most powerful country in the world. The only place it's not, control the finance industry and the military spending. Other than that, it's already over. It's already over. It's already over. Okay? It's already over. We're Wile E. Coyote. We're standing in the dust cloud. We've already jumped off the cliff. We just haven't looked down. All right, it's already over. It's irreversibly over. The United States of America doesn't have the politics. It doesn't have the leaders. It doesn't have the know-how to fix it. It's already over. I mean, yesterday, I showed you guys Aspenstadt. You guys remember that video about the housing, the new district in Vienna? That's not even a thought in any Democratic Socialist head in America but mine. I would say there's probably less than 100 people who even know what that fuck it is in American politics. Not even. Their idea is, let's make LA Houston. America can't fix anything. They can't fix shit. They can't fix anything. We can't build anything. The US is dog shit. They're spending billions on fusion energy in China. Once China cracks nuclear fusion, it's fucking over. They'll be pulling in platinum asteroids into fucking orbit, and we will not be able to build a railroad from San Francisco to LA. It is fucking over. We're working on fusion too. No, we're not. We have like 25 scam companies. Alternative markets to turn to, though, if the U.S. economy collapsed. Yeah, damn. Is there like 1.4 billion people in like a rapidly developing country with like a lot of savings that might be able to increase their consumption?
My point is, like, lots of times people think there's great vocational training in China.
The funniest thing in the world is to be like, but you need us to consume your products. You need us. You need us to eat burger. You need us to eat burger. You need us to eat burger. No one else can eat the burger. You need us to eat the burger. You're delusional. You're fucking delusional. Instead of them, like, I don't know, for example, digging the rare earth metals out of the ground, refining it, building it into a fucking super high-tech phone, and then putting it on a container ship and shipping it across the country so some fucking welfare parasite HR rep, I mean corporate welfare parasite HR rep in America could buy it. How about the Chinese people who make it buy it? That's how America built itself up. You know, you raised the wages and the Ford workers bought the Fords. That's our whole fucking story. You think you need us. You need us to eat the burger. They don't need shit. They have the valuable thing. You're the idiot who needs it. What are you? But I've got dollars. I just printed them out of my LaserJet printer. Don't you want these incredibly amazing dollars? Do you see the bond market? Do you see the bond market and the interest rates on the treasuries spiking? The whole system is falling apart. American dominance is ending in front of your eyes. I want you to look at this today. Look at this. Interest rates going up in front of you. Over 5% interest on a treasury bond. On a treasury bond. My parents' mortgage is 2.75%. My parents' mortgage is 2.75%. The federal government has to pay a higher interest rate than my fucking parents do. And it's only getting worse. It's getting worse. Or based on the bond rate, because the government buys bonds at auction. And this is the secondary market of those bonds bought at auction. So you could buy bonds from the secondary market, or you could buy bonds directly from the government. If you buy bonds directly from the government, the rate at which people are willing to pay is based on where the market is right now. So the government, on its freshly issued bonds, will have to generate a higher and higher rate in order to sell the bond. So they're interrelated. So this is the secondary market, but the government is constantly issuing new bonds. And the reason why there was a large spike yesterday is because the Treasury auction went poorly. Let me see if I can find a story on it to explain it. Here we go. Tepid demand for U.S. Treasury auctions shows investor jitters about tax bill deficit. U.S. Treasury Department saw soft demand for a $16 billion sale of 20-year bonds on Wednesday, with investors worried about the country's increasing debt burden as Congress wrangles with a tax and spending bill that is expected to worsen the fiscal outlook. The poorly received auction, which saw stocks of the dollar sell off while U.S. Treasury yields rose, shows intensified investor worries about the
its citizens live in subsidised social housing. But in the UK, less than 1 in 10 live in a council house. And not only that, the quality and style is simply out of this world.
So is this what you think of when you think of council housing?
This is Alt Erla, a social housing estate on the outskirts of Vienna. It may look like tough, brutalist architecture, but actually, it's humane, caring design of the highest order.
Oh, wow. Look at that. They've even got an indoor swimming pool as well.
They have nurseries, schools and tennis courts all conveniently on site. I can't quite believe this.
This is about long-term thinking, allowing people to put down roots, giving them stability. I mean, just imagine if I proposed a high-density council housing estate with loads of swimming pools, indoor and outdoor, clubs, play spaces. I'd be left out of town because everybody would say you couldn't do that.
With 10,000 residents, Alt Erla has the highest density living in Vienna. But you'd never guess that from the peaceful atmosphere.
Monica.
Hi.
Hi, so nice to see you.
Monica pays the equivalent of £600 a month rent for her flat. Back in Harlow, temporary accommodation can give you a quarter of the size for almost the same rent. And with the Viennese having such secure tenancies, there's little temptation to buy. So Monica has no stress of being moved on, which is handy, as her dad Heinz lives in the block next door.
How long have you lived here? 40 years. 40 years? 40 years.
Yeah. People are like, Mike, how many? I've probably shown that, I want to say 20 times on this stream at least. And the reason why is because I want these ideas to get out there. Housing does not cost a lot because of the structure or the labor. It is real estate speculation. It is not because it's that expensive to build a fucking building. I don't know if this is a dumb question, but I understand why other countries buy U.S. bonds and dollars for their country. But why does who does the U.S. government buy from? The U.S. government buys goods and services with our budget. Housing needs to be treated as a human right and not a commodity. And until then, we'll never have truly affordable housing. That's what they do in Vienna. What are your thoughts on those type of projects only possible in mono-ethnic, monoculture societies? That is such a good question. In 2022, New York City had approximately 3.1 million immigrants, representing 38% of the city's total population. Vienna, Austria, had at the beginning of 2024 had 35.4% of its residents who were foreign nationals and 40.2% born abroad. About 45.4% of Vienna's population is of foreign origin, either foreign citizens or Austrian nationals born abroad. I guess it isn't just whites then.
No, that's very much in the book. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. I mean, it's that ethos of you do what's best for the
The communities that I talk about the most are called Alt-Urla. I think it's like Alt-Urla Vienna. I might be misspelling it. I just love that people get such cool like planters. Like the planters are so deep that you can like plant fucking like large bushes or small trees. It's so fucking cool. Competition! What the fuck are you talking about? That's called competition. What the fuck are you talking about? I legitimately don't understand how people are so xenophobic. What the fuck are you talking about? Yes, people started a company and said we can compete with Apple and we're gonna make our own phones. What the fuck are you talking about? What, is Apple supposed to have a monopoly in China forever? Like, what are you talking about? What the fuck are you saying? It doesn't even make sense. Bad. Yes, that's why competition started, because Apple was a fucking anti-competitive monopolist who was fucking controlling everything. And it sucked. And so people were like, I'm gonna make a phone that doesn't do all this shit. And it'll be just as good as an iPhone, and it won't have the walled garden of the bullshit app store and shit. And you'll actually be able to modify it. And you know, it'll be more of an enthusiast phone, and it'll be better value. And I won't charge as much for branding. And people who didn't care about the Apple conspicuous consumption brand shit were like, you know what? I'm going to try this other phone that's cheaper. And they were very satisfied. And they were like, fuck Apple. I can't believe capitalism allowed this to happen. Not because he's associating China's Made in China 2025 with the far right Project 2025. They have absolutely nothing to do with each other. In fact, and this is one of the things that I think is very important. This shows planning and government intervention and government enterprise and left-wing thinking is superior to your centrist corporatism. And they're kicking your fucking ass. I just wanted to let you guys know I'll be going on Noah Samson's stream very soon. So before we get to that, I need to go ahead and chill. It's been 4 hours into the stream. And so we need to chill. If you really enjoy this content, if you like having a place where we can pull together and think critically from the left, please consider supporting the stream by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can attach that to your Twitch account. You get 1 free sub a month. That's your Twitch Prime sub. Chat, we're only like 11. What is that? 11 subs away from 666. Here's Hassan's answer to the ADL smear campaign. Anyway, if you enjoy this content, please consider supporting it by subscribing. Right now, we have a hype train. And when you subscribe during a hype train, we get promoted in the algorithm. Nothing will piss off the lobby more than having one of the largest streams on Twitch be an unabashedly pro-Palestine left-wing news program. And the best thing about this channel
Mike from
is
PA.
that every single time one of you subscribes,
Mike from PA.
You are personally pissing off Ethan Klein. I haven't mentioned him today, but it's time to chill. If you want to piss off Ethan Klein, subscribe. Take a look at this fucking obsession. Israel.
Mike from PA, to me, is a full-on grifter. One day I'm going to do a video on this guy. He is the most pathetic dipshit on all of Twitch. And just to show you how easy this grift is, this guy is like relatively successful. And he is like not talented. He is vile. And he is cringe as fuck. What's his average view count?
Probably like a couple K.
Couple K?
Does he really get a couple K?
Nice. And somehow he still succeeded. You know? He has 7,000 members or something. Every time I see that number, I'm like, whoa. I'm happy to say that his sub count is getting lower.
Chat, my sub count is getting lower. You can piss off Ethan Klein. You can piss off Ethan Klein by subscribing. Don't let Ethan Klein feel good. Gift 5 subs right now. One of my favorite things is like the amount of subscribers I have is extremely high as a ratio to my viewership. One of the highest on Twitch. It is true. And so, yes, am I very successful? I'm objectively one of the most successful streamers on Twitch. It is what it is. But it makes me even more motivated and even happier to think that Ethan Klein is constantly monitoring my subscriber count.
Is it? Yeah, I mean, it's closer to 8,000 before. I mean, every time I look, he has between 7,000 and 8,000 paying members, which is pretty disturbing, but it is what it is.
Like, I gotta be honest, I don't even notice when Ethan Klein talks about me. I legitimately don't notice. Somebody has to tell me.
Mike from PA. 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 Mike from PA.
Mike from PA.
Mike from PA. Mike from PA. Mike from PA.
Mike from PA. Mike from PA.
Mike from PA. Mike from PA to me is a full.
Oh God. Holy shit. And my reaction to that is simply this. I mean, like, you're supposed to be mad when people are like angry at you. But one of my chatters, Joey Keyboard, made a video. You may have seen it before. So as we have this hype train, so please consider supporting the stream by subscribing during this hype train as we listen to one of my favorite pieces of media.
Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein, defender of genocide, helping small creators grow a larger size. In 2025, promoting the left side, Denims, Be-It, Frogan, Hasanabi, and mine. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend. Thank you, Ethan Klein. You are my best friend. You are the rent payer. You are the legend.
All right, chat. Oh boy. Thank you, Ethan Klein. And thank you everybody for subscribing. We are currently at 6,802 subscribers. Holy shit, which is a crazy fucking number. I remember, we're going to raise the goal now to 7,000. I remember when I first started streaming on Twitch, I told someone, I was like, if I could get 1,500 subscribers, then I'll be able to stay on Twitch full time. I could stop the other projects and I could focus on my stream. 1,500 paid members. It was going to be tight, but I was really passionate about it. And so it's wild to look back on that and realize it's only been 6 years. It's only been 6 years. Hey, Mike, I finally got a proper job and wanted to know, is it better to become a tier 3 or spend the same money on individual subs? Honestly, the best thing you could do, the most bang for your buck, is to tier 3 for 6 months in a row. Like, do 6 month tier 3 sub. That's the best way to support a streamer. That's what I recommend. You get a discount. It's cheaper. Yeah, it counts as more subs for the streamer. It's just better. 53% of Israelis don't want aid into Gaza. 53% of respondents said they believe Israel should not permit aid to enter Gaza. Only 34% supported allowing life-saving food, medicines, and water to enter. Israel is a genocidal state. All right. Thank you, everybody, for all the support. The top sub gifter, top bit donor, get the Hype Dre Conductor badge. And right now it is Saint Nicholas with 11 subs and WapMop420 with 201 bits. We are currently 2 subs away, or 599 bits, from level 13. Remember, Amazon doesn't want you to use multi-month subs. More Updog. Subscribe for tier 3 for 6 months in advance. Let's go. Holy shit. I wish there was a bigger deal when someone subscribed at tier 3. What's this? Vio made some turnovers and there's some like pistachios on them. Thank you, Vio. You should offer more to tier 3s. I really should. I gotta figure out a way to... Is that hand real? No. I have a fancy machine to make a fake hand. So in a half hour, I will be going on to Noah Samson's stream, chat. Thank you for all the support. So I'm going to need all of you to manually raid. All right. I'm going to need you to manually raid at noon. When we go over there, you need to manually raid. I want Noah Samson to see the bump. I want people to see the Central Committee bump. All right. We're not yet. Not yet. Hold. All right. Well, I'll put the link in chat because we want the Central Committee manual raid. All right. And then we're going to have a lot of fun. Okay, let's finish this dumb interview of this shit. I actually love this shit so much. This book is fucking nonsense.
Way more insane than people realize. China's #1 in trade, #1 in steel, #1 in shipbuilding, and #1 in high-speed rail. Also, they're leading in robotics, and they have fully automated factories. They're now #1 on car exports, which was not the case 5 years ago. If you go to developing countries, you will see a shocking number of Chinese cars on the road. A lot of people assume China just makes cheap stuff, but that is not the case. I mean, look at their drone shows. Pretty much all drones are made in China, too. They have the vast majority of rare earth metals, and they're the leading producer of 33 elements. China leads in nuclear power, and they're planning 150 new reactors in the next 15 years. Then there's semiconductors, batteries, and solar. And surprisingly, only 16% of China's exports go to the United States. China's basically the world's factory. China's manufacturing is way more insane than people.
Jaw-dropping and like generally true.
Dengism being correct is the funniest shit. Dengism being correct and winning the ideological battle to transition beyond capital. Hilarious. Israel is an apartheid state doing a live stream genocide. I don't think. Are you not allowed to like this post? It would let me retweet it, but it wouldn't let me like it. Israel is an apartheid state doing a live stream genocide. I think it's wrong and dangerous to conflate those heinous actions with Jews. The Apartheid Defense League does it because they think they can improve Israel's standing by silencing its critics. It won't change the truth. That guy on Jon Stewart is Canadian? Of course! Because the neoliberal class doesn't believe in anything, guys. It doesn't believe in anything. American. Oh, America, please save us. Save America. Oh, I'm Canadian. Saying Apple invests $55 billion in China every year is financially illiterate nonsense. We know exactly how much Apple has invested in China, as it discloses it annually in the 10K. China has a cumulative investment in Greater China that includes Hong Kong and Taiwan of $4.8 billion. Including in the $4.8 billion balance sheet figure are leasehold improvements on Apple stores, inventory prepayments, and owned capital assets at its supplier facilities like molds and specialized equipment sitting in Foxconn factories. Again, the $4.8 billion represents the cumulative aggregate of long-lived assets that Apple has in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Also notably, Apple has been liquidating, aka converting cash and repatriating this tangible asset base. The number peaked at $13 billion in 2019. Okay, what about wages of employees? Vast majority of BOM compromised tech components like Samsung OLEDs from South Korea Sony CMOS camera sensors from Japan, and chips that are fabricated in Taiwan. None of this value accrues to Chinese employees. Instead, China captures most, but not all, of the $57 allocated to manufacturing and other costs for a relatively high-end iPhone model like the 16 Pro Max. This triangulates with figures that I've been using for China domestic value DVA of $60 an iPhone. At its peak, China manufactured all iPhones, 225 million. At $60 per phone, this equates to 13.5 of DVA, which is another proxy for direct and indirect wages. Apple makes other products in China like iPads, but iPhones represent the bulk of its worldwide sales. The even more substantive point is that framing Apple's operations in China exactly as some noblesse oblige that benefited Chinese economy in a one-sided manner is completely off kilter. Last year, Chinese households bought nearly 70 billion and generated 27 billion of operating earnings, of which greater than 100% of which repatriated as long-lived assets declined. Since 2012, Apple has generated and repatriated 250 billion in operating income off of selling its products and services to Chinese households. Note, this does not include any value contribution of export manufacturing. So yes, while China reaps substantial economic benefits from the economic activity driven by Apple in China, Apple and its largely American workers and American shareholders have arguably benefited even more. Hundreds of billions over the years, plus related multiplier effects, goes a long way to benefit the economy. MNCs like Apple have absolutely crushed it and are the reason why Americans can continue to continuously increase consumption over the years. It's been a win-win relationship, and trying to frame this as some sort of one-side plot to undermine America is completely off base. This narrative is supported by glaring financial illiteracy, should not come as a surprise. But sure, if you want to kill this golden goose, there is no better target to focus on than Apple. China is certainly not going to stand in the way of American self-harm driven by collective delusion and stupidity, and if anything, has a self-interest in helping it along. My feeling is that China has already accumulated all the advantages they wanted from US trading with the US. So if the United States wants to deny itself the ability to buy cheap, professionally manufactured, high-quality Chinese goods, it's just going to raise prices for Americans while lowering prices for the rest of the world and largely leave China relatively unaffected. Like, that's it. Like, it's gonna advantage Europeans. It's gonna advantage Latin Americans. It's gonna advantage Asians, and that is and Africans, of course. Those are the people who are gonna have cheaper, high quality goods from China. The U.S. is gonna pay higher prices. That's just dead weight loss for us. That means our economy is going to be smaller for almost no fucking gain. Meanwhile, what's happening here? Mortgage rates climbed to the highest level in more than 3 months. Cool. Thanks, guys. Mortgage rates are inching back towards 7%, highlighting the ongoing strain on U.S. home buyers. The average rate on a standard 30-year fixed was 6.86% in the week ending May 22nd, the highest level since mid-February. Mortgage rates track the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield, which climbed higher as bonds sold off after the U.S. federal debt was downgraded from a perfect rating by Moody's ratings on Friday. Yields continued rising into the week as Wall Street investors began to fret about how much a potential tax bill pushed by the Trump administration could add to the country's debt load. Elevating borrowed rates, coupled with still climbing home prices, have already stalled spring's traditionally busy home buying season. Sales of previously owned homes dropped by 0.5% last month on a seasonally adjusted basis. That's the slowest rate of growth since April 2009. Yay! Great job, idiot. All right, I wanted to show you this video because it's really fucking gross.
Charged with terror offense. Liam Ohana was charged with displaying a flag in support of Hezbollah, a prescribed organization, a Metropolitan Police said. The 27-year-old from Belfast is due to appear at Westminster Magistrates Court on the 18th of June, the force added. This is literally because they said Israel, by the way. This is not because of the flag. First of all, waving the flag and getting arrested or getting criminally prosecuted for waving the Hezbollah flag is insane, especially considering that the Hezbollah flag is a flag of an active political party that is a part of the Lebanese parliament, right? But of course, that's just how the UK goes, okay? You can't do that. I know it's illegal. I know it's completely insane.
The UK police have charged Liam Hanna, who is a member of the band Kneecap, with a terrorism offence for displaying a
fucking up, chat.
flag in support of Hezbollah. That is the allegation. That is the allegation that the police have charged Liam Hanna with.
That is absolutely insane. Is it illegal to display an Israeli flag?
Member of the rap band Kneecap.
England doesn't have a First Amendment, so this happens all the time. I know. Did they not do it in the US? Sorry if I'm dumb. No, they did this at, I don't even know exactly where they did this. By the way, if the rest of the band didn't apologize, they probably would also be going to jail too. This is just the one person that had the flag that's maybe going to go to jail. Hopefully it's just a fine. But yes, this is England behavior, England activities. You already know what it is. It's disgusting. Like, think about it this way. The EDL doesn't get this level of aggro attention, and they've been able to basically become a part of the Reform Party, and they're out and about fascists. Keir Starmer is unironically channeling fascist sentiment, okay? Keir Starmer is unironically channeling fascist sentiment when talking about immigrants. Meanwhile, you have this situation where a popular Irish music group is criminally prosecuted for waving the Hezbollah flag. I personally don't give a about people who wave the Hezbollah flag, like, yeah, oh no, it's branded as a terrorist organization. This is completely not allowed. Suck my dick, okay? It would be a lot different if they were actually waving a dangerous flag like a Nazi flag or the EDL flag. Except, you know, when you do that kind of stuff, you get to basically be a part of the British government. You can do blood libel against Muslims all day, every day. Yeah, you can wave the Israeli flag, even though Israel's doing a genocide. The EDL haven't become a part of the Reform UK. The EDL haven't been active since the late 2010s. The EDL has not been active since the late 2010s because it's de facto what the Reform Party's positions are, and it's actually not only seeped into the Reform Party's positions, it quite literally is a part of the Labour Party's positions at this point. Like, we've moved past the Tories. Whenever someone says like, oh, EDL is inactive, yeah, I know. So is, what is it called? Like Pagida or whatever. There's no need for your outsider terrorist white nationalist group to exist if the same exact positions are being championed by an active party, and also the same exact positions are now even being repeated by the opposition, the Labour Party, that is supposed to be in charge right now. Yeah, they went from EDL to UKIP, then Vote Leave, and now Reform. Anyone who doesn't understand that that's precisely what's going on here is being silly. Starmer literally did a speech that used the Islands of Strangers line that Enoch Powell did in his fascist Rivers of Blood speech. He's trying to out racist Reform as if this won't normalize them further and lead to their victory in 2029. That's precisely what's going on. And it's something that I've mentioned. It's something that I mentioned was going to inevitably happen, and it's happening faster than I thought it was going to. Oh, God. England, UK, what the are you guys doing? On the one hand, they're like, well, you know, Israel's mass starvation campaign seems unconscionable. Maybe we should stop that. On the other hand, they don't even, like, Israel is a far, 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 far worse terrorist group by any metric of terrorism than Hezbollah is, okay? It's not even a goddamn question. It's not even close, okay? It's not even close. Same with Hamas. And yet,
I mean, the reality is this is what states do, right? Like, a state is in the club where they could commit violence. And the only group that could contest a state's right to commit violence is another state.
You can obviously wave the IDF dog tag everywhere you go. You can wave the Israeli flag everywhere you go. There is not even a ounce of scrutiny towards that sort of thing. I hate this goddamn double standard. It's just one that only can exist if you don't consider Muslims to be human, if you don't consider Arabs to be human, because Israel and all of the people that Israel is killing are technically collateral damage, because you know, they were in the way. Israel terrorized foreign diplomats just today, earlier today. The BDS movement in Berlin has been classified as an enemy of the Constitution. This could increase repression. Nice. As Israel gets more violent, its Western allies get more repressive with their speech laws. But no,
Asmongold just declared he doesn't blame Hassan for the two. How the fuck could you blame Hassan? That would be fucking stupid. I think Asmongold is stupid, but I don't think he's that stupid. I also think that if you try to engage with this kind of behavior, you're fucking insane.
Hezbollah oppresses women and Hamas are homophobic. Double standards at its finest. Yeah, that's the other side of this. It's like, yeah, those guys are. Okay, so what? Israel is killing all of the women and all of the gay people. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I hate this. I hate it so much. It's so frustrating. Oh, yeah. Labor is straight up using the Democrats' failed strategy. I know. But look, the inconsistencies are glaring and they're obvious. The inconsistencies of saying, like, maybe what Israel is doing is kind of bad too, on the one hand, while also on the other hand being like, well, you know, this is illegal. Like, you will go to jail if you wave the banner of the enemy. But of course, they do not have free speech. And for the record, this should be a warning sign for all of you here in the United States of America, because they want to have this lack of free speech here as well. If you want to understand how utterly depraved the British government is, Kneecap member is charged with terror offense. Now, as you guys know, Kneecap are my boys. Okay, they are my boys. They're wonderful people. They are very outspoken. Kneecap is the name that they adopted after the practice of the IRA during the Troubles, where the IRA would shoot the kneecaps of collaborators with the British occupation. And after these guys came to Coachella, and I filmed their Coachella set on week 2, if you guys recall, on their second Coachella week, they had a placard up behind them that said, Israel, free Palestine. This drew a lot of ire from Israel dick riders. They lost their minds over it. They could not comprehend that an entire arena full of young people was celebrating such terrifying messages. Terrifying only if you are, again, an amoral monster, a socially maladapted psychopath who only cares about Israel's agenda of death and destruction.
All right, everybody, I am going to call it there. Mike was right is the raid message. I am spamming in the chat the Noah Samps. I need like a couple minutes just so I can make sure that I have everything all set up correctly so I could be on at noon. I will be on Noah Samps' stream in 15 minutes. Everybody go ahead. The raid message. Mike was right. Go into the link. Type Mike was right in the chat. Right now. Get out of here. Fuck your V's. Get in there. Get out of here. Get in there. All right. I'll see you guys in 15 minutes. All right? I'll see you guys in 15 minutes on Noah Samps' stream. Get the fuck in there and wait. And also get your fucking checkbooks out. Get your money out. It's time to donate, motherfuckers. Let's get that. Let's get it to 425,000. Let's fucking go.